Unmute yourself. Oh,
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
huh. Oh man. When was the last episode? Actual episode.
I do not remember.
Yeah,
So, possibly up to 3 weeks.
something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Three weeks. Yeah. Episode 268 was the last one before this.
Yeah. I remember what happened. We did have an opportunity
Yes, and I had to
in the
watch my
last 3 weeks.
stupid, horrible hockey team, which didn't even make the playoffs, and it's all my fault.
Yeah.
Ужас.
Folks,
Awful.
just so you know, Greg had an opportunity to do this show
Yeah.
for you. Some of you rely on the show. Not many, but there are some.
There's like five people who it's like
Yeah. And you
it's like
failed those 5 people.
I did fail those five people.
And you failed yourself, frankly.
That is true.
All right.
That is
That's
true.
enough for today.
Wouldn't be the first time, but yes.
But it should be the last.
Yeah. There's a series that they put out on Amazon Prime called House of David. And I want to tell you, man, for something that was put out by something remotely adjacent to Hollywood, it is very well you know, researched in terms of, the Bible, Tanakh, from a Jewish perspective. And interestingly enough, half the actors, it's like, at this point it's like Dayenu, it's enough for us. Half the actors are Israeli. And the other half are like English, Turkish. The guy who plays David, it's called House of David. The guy who plays young David is a Coptic in real life. He's a Coptic Christian from Egypt. And the guy who directed slash produced this series is a Christian American guy from Alabama.
Who didn't do his research?
He did. He did. Why?
I can prove it.
Okay.
Because David was a bright-eyed ginger.
Yes. and they got a dark guy or like a Middle Eastern looking guy. Yes.
which would be okay if that's what David looked like, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He was a light-skinned,
He did not.
bright-eyed
Yeah.
ginger.
Well, you know what's funny? Like the way that this guy, this actor, even got this role was he like accidentally got into acting. He like was in high school or something like that, and he went into like a choir for like it was a whole story for like $10. Next thing you know, he's auditioning for like different things, and then he was initially rejected at first, and for whatever reason, he was called back for a second audition, and they chose him. And the funny part is that the girl, there's like two girls his age, or maybe a little bit actually older. I'm sorry. They're like I think he's like 18 or 19 in real life. And there's two girls, one of them, and they both play, the daughters of Shaul, of Saul, Michal, and there's the other one, the older one. And so the one who plays the older one, she's actually Israeli, and she is the granddaughter of Chaim Topol, the guy who plays Fiddler on the Roof. So she's his granddaughter.
Topi. Topi.
Yeah. So she
Oh,
plays.
that's from Notting Hill.
Oh, okay.
Remember that movie, Notting
Yeah,
Hill?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
had this guy who worked at
Yeah.
his bookshop.
The blonde guy. Yeah, yeah. He's like a
He's like
soccer.
Topi. He's like
He
Topol.
he's from Wales.
No, that's his roommate.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
There's another guy
I
who
thought
worked at
that
his,
I thought that was the doc of the guy.
yeah, yeah. No, no, Notting Hill. He had a roommate who was the man you're describing, and then he had another actor who was his bookshop employee who didn't know very much.
Uh,
You could probably find the clip on YouTube, just like Notting Hill,
oh yeah, yeah, dark, yeah, dark guy, darker kind of guy.
silly guy with the yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. They both look like these kind of guys who were whatever in these movies about the medieval times. Uh, but anyway, so like, yeah, she's this Israeli
Regular
girl.
white-looking guys.
Yes, no, like this certain, Elizabethan.
Yeah.
Um, So then, this girl, and then the one who plays Michal, the one, Michal who ends up marrying David, is played by a British girl. And then they have a couple of others. You know who plays in this movie? Uh, the guy people say I look like him. Uh,
Oded Fair.
Oded Fair is in this movie. He plays the military commander of Shaul's army, who's really not much of a commander. He's kind of like this. The way they depict him, he's like a mitigator guy, very like kind of
This
not.
is already a mess.
It's not a mess.
It is because
If you watch it, you'll
because
see that it's at least they're trying to bring in like you know
yeah,
um
the reason I'm saying it's a mess based on the way you're describing it,
yeah,
because I just recently have read uh, the entire David story in Tanakh
yeah,
in Scripture
yeah,
with my dad.
yeah,
We're almost complete, actually. We're
yeah,
going through it now,
yeah,
and so spending time with the people who are being described in the book, especially on the commentary and the explanation of the verses
yeah.
from our sages, and this is not the story.
Well, I will just tell you, I don't know if you've seen the series. I will just tell you, I think given that it was made not by a Orthodox Jewish Torah scholar, but made by a Christian, he's a right-wing guy, but a Christian.
I agree, it's a
It,
waste of
it
time.
it's no, meaning it's like the most, I would say, relatively non-butchered thing I've seen as far as biblical productions that I've seen, if that makes any sense. They do show, what I appreciate it, they show the scene with I mean not just the scene, but the whole interaction with the prophet, Shmuel, Samuel, and they
Yeah, they've
and
done
and
biblical movies.
and they show the whole thing. It's actually there's one scene. I'm not gonna get I don't want to ruin it, but there's a whole thing literally where Shmuel is telling Saul, why the hell did you not finish Agag, the king of the Amalekites? Right? They show how Agag is like at his feet, whatever, and then he goes,
Do me a favor.
yeah,
On YouTube, go um what's his name? The guy who played Patton, the famous actor.
Before I do that, can I just tell you what?
Yeah, I know. I'm saying this. The scene that you're talking about
Yeah,
was in a famous movie
yeah,
called Samuel.
okay.
Like back in the day.
No, so I'm just trying to say that in this particular incarnation, they do this cool thing where Samuel, you know, removes the, basically the bracha, the shechina from what is it called? From Shaul, or he tells him like it's removed from you, and they
Yeah,
show like this graphic thing where it's like you see like some kind of an aura, like an essence removed from Shaul. It's actually pretty cool. It shows you that like this is real stuff. And and then you see Shaul just getting sicker and deteriorating, and then Samuel like violently, you know, kills Agag,
that's
like
probably
decapitates
not
him.
correct.
Okay.
I mean, look, there's a reason why like I don't want to watch it
Yeah.
because I've learned I've learned that even back in the day with like the Ten Commandments, the movie The Ten
Yeah.
Commandments,
Yeah.
the rabbis are explaining that if you saw that movie, you're infected.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Like you're having like extra difficulty to picture what actually went
Well,
down
yeah.
based on the description,
Uh,
based on
what what actually happened? I mean, basically you're saying it's not correct. What's not correct about dude, it's hard to hear you. Your mic's cutting out. Hello, your mic is cutting out. Your mic is cutting out. Hello? You're muted. You're not muted. I don't know why. Can you hear me? Your mic cut out during that whole hacking. You know, Eric, for a person who's into tech, you got a lot of difficulties. No, I'm just kidding. Our friend Eric is fixing things. He'll have us running in a jiffy. Oops. Yes, folks, we are just when we started talking about the hacking of Shaul, supposed Hashem, I can't hear you at all. You're muted completely. All right, there we go.
Hello? How about
Mr.
now?
Mr.
Okay, yeah.
Cyborg walked into the room and therefore everything shut off
Mr. What?
instantaneously.
Mr. Who?
Cyborg, I call him the cyborg.
What? Oh, because he like
He has like the pods that disconnected and then
ah
Bluetooth reconnect and
yeah.
disconnect, reconnect.
Oh, so basically this whatever thing he was
I took it
apparatus he
over.
had.
Yes, he took it over. Did you hear him speak to you?
No, I did not, not at all. Not in
Ah,
this
so you're
second.
just talking to
You were
yourself then.
muted. I was just making fun of you people, yeah.
Oh,
Ah,
such a techy guy, you know. You have
yeah.
this problem.
No, so basically, yeah. So basically, yeah, it wasn't like the Israelites weren't savages. If they, it's not a Jewish thing to like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
the way it's portrayed in the couple of movies that I've seen
yeah.
it is really
It's like barbarism.
a, a perverse insult
Yeah,
to you know, look, Christians, they have some level of reverence. Some Christians have some level of reverence for the people that are spoken about
yeah,
in the Hebrew scripture.
yeah,
But ultimately, they don't take a lot of they don't take it very, very seriously. They portray them as these flawed people, and
yeah,
the reason why is they won't compare them to Jesus.
yeah,
Ultimately,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
they want to show how Jesus was perfect and all these guys were basically
Well,
essentially
can,
savages
can I
in
say one
comparison.
thing regarding what you're saying?
Yeah.
David Melech, well, David, as a kid, this entire, this is like an 8-part series. They are showing him as this guy, this kid. He goes out into the field, he's shepherding, and they do show him as a guy who's developing, the thing that we always talk about, like Bartzarak basically is trying to teach people how to develop. They show him as a person who's developing this ability, and he's constantly tapping in. Every scene you see, like or every what is it called? Every episode you see at one point he's either talking to his dad or to Yishai or to other people in his family, and he's saying, you know, I spoke to God today, and God sent me a message of X, Y, and Z, or there's like scenes where like David's mother, the same thing. Your mother, he says, your mother spoke to God, and he said that, and she said this to me before she died, and this and that. So they're clearly showing that he had Ruach HaKodesh as from start to finish, and that he was like basically so to speak chosen, anointed since he's a kid, and it was foretold since he's a kid, whether it was his mother or whether it was Shmuel, Shmuel telling his father or telling others, or telling him, you know, this is your kind of destiny, this is what you're supposed to do. Um, so listen, the guy's a Christian, the guy who made this a Christian guy. I don't expect the person who makes this kind of a thing, Christian guy, to go like I'd be pleasantly surprised if he went into any of the I think he did actually, because the name that they gave to David's mother, that's a name that rabbis
Right.
in the Talmud extrapolate out,
Right.
Nitzevet. So he went into the Gemara, the director. He went into the Talmud, he went into Midrash, whatever it is. He said there's a message he writes, disclaimer in the beginning of the thing. He's like, there's some things that have been, so to speak, not dramatized, but like made to add cinematic effect, not completely according to scripture, et cetera, et cetera. He says that. He explicitly says that. So he tried to do the best that he can, given who he is. It seems like with the self-awareness of knowing who he is and knowing what he's not, I guess, relatively speaking. So I don't know. Just like I watched these episodes, I appreciated it. Yes, it's not going to be something that's made by a guy who studied at the Mir, or who studied at Merkaz Harav. It's not going to be
These are
that.
yeshivas, folks.
Yeah, yeah. These are the places where like people who learn like Tanakh in a very deep way. It's not going to be that, and I didn't expect it to be that. But
Right. All I'm
um,
saying is that anything short of that is a waste.
listen, in this day and age, I don't know. I mean, like, dude, can I tell you something? The stuff that is put out by Netflix about anything Jewish or anything Haredi or anything religious, where it's half the people who play it, even in this series, all the people, let's say if it's Israelis, it's all people from Tel Aviv, secular people. But at the very least, you have a character saying Shema Israel, and they're saying the name of Shem. There's a scene where like Michal or whoever or the other one comes to Shaul's wife, and they're talking about how there's going to be a war with the Philistines, and Michal is like, mother, you have to believe in it that Hashem is with us. And then Shaul's wife is like, I don't want to hear this name in this house ever again. The name Hashem. I don't want to. So it's like this. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I hear the name of I hear the word Hashem in a Hollywood production. That's
Right.
already something, man. Like to me, I don't
Eric,
know.
Eric wants to say something. Go
Yes,
on.
yes.
Greg, now I forgot what I was going to say, but it feels like
Great, Eric.
it feels like a lot of is uh, when we're in like a recession like this and everyone is so down, all of film and art, all of the way your mind is attacked, it's it's with music and culture.
Yeah.
So if they're creating a hero character, a savior sort of thing, this to me feels like this is the motion of the world at this point. And you're going to see the two opposites the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, no, of course. No, I agree. Of course.
Look, I'm saying that it's probably better. It's definitely better not to take on a task that you're not equipped to take on. To represent these characters, if you want to actually make them like a movie,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I don't think that's even possible. Second of all, if you're going to do it, you have to do it with the greatest possible delicacy
Yeah.
and respect. And you always have to err on the side of humility and respect.
Yeah.
You never take cinematic liberties to
Yeah.
make somebody
Yeah.
seem more approachable or presentable because you're not telling the story.
Yeah.
You're not telling the truth of the story.
Yeah.
You're making people think that they're learning the Hebrew
You
scripture
you
and
you, you want to know one nuance that like there's a scene where like Michal and her sister, they're on a horse and they're going towards where the battlefield is to see what's going on with the Philistines, and then they're talking, and then the sister goes, she calls her Michali. Michali is a name that a girl will call her friend in Tel Aviv.
highly doubtful that, well, listen, we don't know.
We don't know. Maybe it's
We would
possible.
in order to take a liberty like that,
Yeah.
you better have the original Michal
Yeah.
resurrected from the dead
Correct.
and will tell you, yes,
My sister called me Michali once in a while. Yeah.
perhaps,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Or Michalush. Oh, Michalush. Like,
Just to understand, Michal was the queen of Israel.
yeah. Eventually.
Um,
At that time, she was the daughter
okay,
of whatever. Yeah.
right, right. She was also nobody respects. She was also a completely righteous.
Yeah.
She was a
They
tzaddikus
they depict
and
her
a
as that. They
prophetess
depict her as that, by the way.
and a prophetess.
There's a scene where she comes up to David before this battle, and she comes up to him. This is before he's king, before they're married, and she goes to him, just something like trust in God, and she goes, I feel like, because this is like the second time she's ever met him ever, or spoken to him. She goes, I feel like there's something about you, or there's something, like you're supposed to do something great. She's like, I can't even explain why, but I feel like, you have like something about you and X, Y, Z. Because everybody was like, oh my God, Shaul chose this boy to be, to go fight what's his name? Goliath.
Yeah.
And there was this whole thing that they're depicting it like the army was just like the guys in the army were like, what the hell are you doing? And then the leader of Zvulun tribe, what the hell are you doing? The leader of Reuven, what the hell are you doing? There was like this whole mutiny thing. And then Oded Fair, character, no, the cat, he had to like mitigate this whole insane mutiny thing.
The one who played Avner,
I guess it's not Abner. It's
Shaul's general, Avner.
I think it's Abner. Yeah, I think it's Abner.
If people only understood the
Yeah,
greatness
yeah,
of who Avner
yeah,
was,
yeah. But there is a scene where
righteousness.
Avner is like, because they're coming up to Shaul, and Shaul is like insisting that David is going to be the one to like, go one on one with Goliath. And then they're coming up to Shaul. They're just like, I'm gonna, whatever. I'm gonna attack you, so to speak. I'm gonna like, and then Avner is just like something along the lines of like, I'm ready to die for my king. As in like, he's like, you want to start a fight right here in the camp? I'm gonna like, I'm gonna defend Shaul, even though Shaul was
Shaul needs defending to this day, by the way.
Shaul what?
Shaul needs defending to this day. The way
Yeah,
he's portrayed
yeah,
is criminal.
yeah,
People should go to jail for the way they portray him.
yeah,
It's really an outrage. It's
yeah.
outrageous.
This is an outrage.
No, but it is outrageous.
Dude, you want to know what I want to ask? I'll ask some other people. I want to ask you. I'm always confused by this. Like the whole thing of like what we're told is that why do we have a problem or continue to have a problem with the incarnation of Amalek to this day? Is because of this whole thing. We
Because of
didn't finish.
Shaul, because of
Well,
Shaul.
we didn't finish them off, right? But
Right.
here's the confusing part. We did because he was Agag was eventually killed. So what continued from where?
No, he had because he wasn't killed right away, he
Uh-huh.
was held in captivity.
Uh-huh.
Somehow during that captivity, he was able
He
to
procreated.
cohabit with a woman, and
Oh,
then
yeah,
she carried on his seed.
yeah.
So
Terrible.
and Haman from
Come
the
on, yeah,
Esther story
yeah,
emerged from that.
yeah.
Um, and but just so you understand, like if you Nobody alive today can judge Shaul.
Yeah, I agree.
He was 100% righteous.
Yeah.
Let me explain what I mean. You know what his big mistake was?
No.
He was too humble. God removed him from being the king of Israel because he was too humble
Yeah.
of a person.
Hmm.
Now, folks, let me describe Shaul. They never describe him accurately in movies. He was the tallest man in Israel. If you're going to imagine like like not a Samson, this is how most people don't understand. This is Shaul, Saul, right? Was like a Samson character. He was the biggest, the strongest, the most righteous, the kindest, the gentlest, the most considerate, the sweetest of all Israelite men.
Oh,
He was
they depict him as a little bit different than that.
he was from
That's
the tribe
unfortunate.
of Benjamin.
Yeah.
He was he his he's the boy who is always like trying to make everybody feel good. He'll find the person at the party who's not whose feelings were hurt or who's and would sit there and just spend time with them. He's like he's the type of person that you could put him against a wound and the wound would heal.
Hmm.
People do not understand who King Saul was. Okay. Um, Even in the scripture, there's a description of him speaking to maidens at the well. And there's a question, a famous question in the commentaries. Why why was it important to record this interaction? It was important. There's a lot of reasons, and there's a lot of deep spiritual meaning, but the simplest on the surface level, it was describing to us how charming he was because the girls were trying to engage him in conversation. He was looking for his father's cattle. If you recall how the story begins, and he was at the well, and he was asking had they seen it, and the girls kept speaking to him because he was so handsome and charming. They just wanted to keep him talking. They wanted to.
Yeah.
They didn't want to let him go. And he's like, but he was duty bound. Okay. So there was no more obvious person to be the king of Israel, the first king of Israel, truly a worthy king. Israel was lucky to have a king like this. And his son Jonathan was like him as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So his flaw, his kingly flaw, he had no flaws, but as a king, he had a flaw. He was too humble. Because a king has to understand, he had to remember that since God had chosen him to be the king, that means that he should have had more confidence in his own ability to judge what the correct law is, how to go about following God's command. Instead, he relied on his chief rabbi. Who do you remember who he was? Doug. Remember in South Park? That's Doug. He's a dick. Remember,
Yeah.
whenever I think of that character, I think of Doeg
Doeg.
the Edomite.
They depict this guy
He
as
was
like
evil.
as
He was
like
evil.
yeah, no, it's funny. Like, yeah, they depict him. There's a scene where he comes up to um there's a scene with him and I believe Jonathan, where there's just the two of them. And Doeg is just like, word gets around. I heard that Samuel came to somewhere in Bethlehem and pa. And he is just like, please let me know if you need me to go and kill somebody. And Jonathan is just like, nah.
Folks,
That's the way it's depicted.
just to let you know that Doeg was such a rare personality in Israel that he had we call him the Edomite
They,
because
they they got a freaking Israeli guy to play him. There you go on.
obviously. So,
It's
so
ridiculous.
Doeg the Edomite, you know why he
Yeah.
was called the Edomite? in English is
Because
translated as
because he
Edomite.
because he's like similar to Asa.
There's a lot of depth to it, but the surface, just the entry level into the study of Doeg
Yeah.
is because he knew the law so well that if you tried to argue with him, he'd embarrass you
Yeah.
and you turn red from shame for how
Mm,
for that's level one Doeg the Edomite, but he was not righteous.
yeah.
And our Torah tradition says that he's one of the few people who lost his place in the world to come.
He's like that off the Derek guy who knows the whole Talmud, the whole
Right.
Torah.
It'd be fascinating to do a study into Doeg and what went wrong with him. Bless you.
Well, here's
But
yeah.
but he was known in Israel as one of the most learned in the law, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Saul's humility, he deferred to
Mhm.
Doeg because when
Yeah.
it came to killing the king of Amalek
Yeah.
and the few remaining animals that were left,
Yeah.
that were possessed by um, the property of the Amalek
Yeah.
kingdom,
Yeah.
he the question was, should they kill them immediately or should they kill the animals
Hmm.
as a sacrifice,
Yeah.
slightly like in a couple of hours or like
Yeah.
tomorrow or something like that,
Yeah.
like use it because they would, they'd perform ritual
Yeah.
animal sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was that was the delay. It
Yeah.
was the level of Shaul's sinning
Yeah.
would be all of our most praiseworthy actions.
Yeah.
The most righteous man on earth, his greatest achievement would
So
be on the level of
wait,
Saul's.
wait. So what you're saying is Doeg gave him, so to speak, bad advice,
Right.
and because Doeg is related to, it's obviously Edom and Amalek. He's
I
related to
don't
these
know
people.
why he gave him the bad advice
Mm.
because I did not do I did not delve into Doeg like I wanted to. I never got around to it.
Yeah. Well, here's what I just want to read. Just this is like a tertiary thing on Wikipedia about Doeg. Um, this is what it writes. Though he died at the early age of 34, he is regarded by the rabbis as the greatest scholar of his time, a strong description being supposedly applied to him because he made everyone with whom he disputed blush. You mentioned that. He could bring forward 300 different questions with reference to one single ritual case.
That's why
But
they called him the Edomite
yeah,
because for the
yeah,
folks, the word Edom
Edom is right. Yeah.
in Hebrew, Edom means red.
Yeah.
So the red from the blushing. Okay.
So here it says, but he was lacking inward piety, so that God was, quote, anxious concerning his end and mourned for him. So his most unfortunate qualities, however, were his malice, his jealousy, and callous tongue. He sounded the praise of David before Saul, only in order to provoke his jealousy, ascribing to David qualities that Saul lacked. He cherished a grudge against David, whose opinion prevailed over his own in determining the site for the temple in Jerusalem, and he had well nigh succeeded in proving by his arguments that David, as a descendant of Ruth the Moabite, could not, according to the law, belong to the congregation of Israel when the prophet Samuel interposed in David's favor. He also declared David's marriage with Michal to be invalid and introduced Saul to
Okay,
marry.
we've
Yeah,
already taken a few wrong
yeah.
turns.
Well, no, I just want to read this one part here.
The
He
problem is
goes,
it's wrong. The information's bad.
no, but here's what there's
All
more.
right, continue with the bad information. I'll
No,
have to
no,
put pieces together.
this may not be okay. Doeg not only disregarded the sanctity of marriage, but he also slew in with his own hands the priests of Nob, after Avner and Amasa, Saul's lieutenants, had refused to do so. For all his iniquitous deeds, he pressed the law into his service and derived justification for his conduct from it. Abimelech, the high priest of Nob, admitted that he had consulted the Urim Tumim for David. This served Doeg as the basis for the charge of treason, and he stated it as an unalterable halakha that the Urim Tumim may be consulted only for a king. In vain, Avner and Amasa and all the other members of the Sanhedrin demonstrated that Urim and Tumim may be consulted for any of those undertaking concerns in general welfare. Doeg would not yield, and as no one could be found to execute the judgment, he himself officiated as hangman. When the motive of revenge actuated him, he held cheap alike the life and honor of his fellow man. He succeeded in convincing Saul that David's marriage with the king's daughter Michal had lost validity from the moment David was declared as a rebel. As such, he said David was as good as dead, since a rebel was outlawed. Hence, his wife was no longer bound to him. Doeg's punishment accorded with his misdeeds. He who had made an impious use of knowledge of the law completely forgot the law, and even his disciples rose up against him, drove him from his house of study. In the end, he died a leper. As it often happens with those who strive for something to which they are not entitled, he lost that which he possessed. God sent 3 angels of destruction to Doeg. The first caused him to forget his learning, the second burned his soul, and the third scattered the ashes. According to some, he was slain by his own pupils when they found that he had forgotten his learning. Others maintained that he was slain by David when Doeg informed him of the death of Shaul and of Jonathan. The son of Doeg was Saul's armor bearer, who was killed by David for daring to slay the king, even though he longed for death. According to another midrash, Doeg tried to preserve the life of Agag, the king of the Amalekites, by interpreting Lev, I don't know what this is, into a prohibition against the destruction of both old and young in war. Doeg is among those who have forfeited their portion in the future world by their wickedness. Doeg is an instance of the evil consequences of calumny, because by slandering the priests of Nob, he lost his own life and caused the death of Shaul, Ahimelech, and Avner. Yeah.
All right, let me unravel this now. No, because you read all like the way the way this information is whatever you're reading from Wikipedia or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Was it was confusing, conflicting. It didn't
Yeah.
make sense. Not explained correctly. It was not written
Yeah.
correctly at all.
Yeah, because one part of it is from like it starts off midrash, but then there's like a thing from like there's like this, it's not a website, it's like a book called The Legends of the Jews
Okay.
from some Gutenberg press, whatever.
Right. Folks, you know, the translations of the Hebrew scripture
Are terrible.
and of the commentary are not just terrible, they're impossible, and it's criminal to even attempt it, because all you
Yeah.
do is obfuscate.
Yeah.
You do not shed light. You don't increase the light in the world or understanding. You literally create confusion and obfuscation.
Yeah.
Anyway, so okay. Doeg, in terms of his ability to understand the law, right? It would be kind to say that his ability to understand the law was still intact even while he was advising Shaul. It started to evade him as his evil nature began to pervade his behavior, even while he was advising King Saul. So he may have been at one point the chief scholar, or one of, he was not actually, even he was one of, not the, because he challenged David's pedigree, because he said that he was a descendant of Ruth, the Moabitess, right? And he challenged that, because he challenged her right to even be considered Jewish, because there are specific verses in the Hebrew scripture that say that a Moabite cannot join the covenant of Israel because of how they treated the Jews during the Exodus. I'm not going to get into that, but there are clear verses that say that. But the Torah tradition, the oral tradition, says that this applies only to the males. Why? Because, well, the criticism that the reason why God excluded the Moabite men from ever being able to convert to Judaism is because they would not bring any water for the Jews as they were going through the wilderness when they were fleeing Egypt. They wouldn't even sell them water. They said, we will buy it from you. Please just give us some water, give us some provisions. We're not going to go through, we just want to pass through your territory and just buy a little water from you, please. And they were so hostile to them. So it's the men who are punished. And why not the women? Because it's not expected of women to go and to greet, refugees coming from God knows where, because that's dangerous for a woman. You're not going to send out your wife and your daughter to go, to go greet a bunch of war-ravaged people. You know what I mean? That's dangerous. It wasn't really dangerous in that case with the Israelites, because that's not in the nature of the Israelites to be barbaric and savage. If you want an example of that, go to talk to any of the security detail at any Madison Square Garden event where Orthodox Jews are involved. Okay, they have these like religious Jewish events where you have like tens of thousands of people in stadiums and places like Madison Square Garden, and the security detail always talk about how mild mannered all the people are in those events. That's been a Jewish trait since the very beginning. Of course, there's
I mean, Frank, what about people in Israel?
even people in Israel, even people in Israel.
I don't know. Have you been to a Beitar Yerushalayim game? Soccer game? I hate to push back, man.
No, but that's you see. I want to explain something to you. That's when Israelis are trying so hard
Yeah.
to. They just want to be a nation.
Yeah.
Like secular Israelis want to be like any other nation. Like they want to mimic.
They're mimicking Arabs.
of all the other soccer, they want to be like soccer hooligans too. Like, I don't want to get into that. It's a sidetrack. But generally speaking, throughout the ages, historically, and you'll still find this characteristic among most Jews, but especially among religious Jews. Okay, I'm sure you're gonna those who want to find the exceptions, you're gonna take great joy in finding the exceptions. I'm sure you can find something on Twitter, okay? But generally speaking, okay. Anyway, so for this reason, because it was not proper, it was not expected of the Moabite women to go up there and greet the Israelites. So therefore, this prohibition was not extended to them. So Ruth, being a female, a Moabite woman, she was eligible to convert, and there was never any real question to David's pedigree. Okay, so and Doeg, not either knowing that and trying to skew that, or not knowing it, that automatically shows that he's not the greatest scholar. Okay, or perhaps that was the first thing that escaped him, that escaped his memory when the evil began to take over his mind, to when he started to plot to make David and Shaul, to create a conflict between them.
Yeah.
Now I want to reveal something about David and Shaul, their relationship. Shaul was what we in the Torah tradition call the Mashiach ben Yosef. It has nothing to do with anything that the Christians are trying to say about the Messiah, son of Joseph. It's completely different. Okay? So King Shaul was the Mashiach ben Yosef. He was one of the candidates to be the Mashiach ben Yosef. He was a strong candidate to be the Mashiach ben Yosef. And David was obviously the Mashiach ben David. We call these are job titles, folks. Job titles, okay? Now they had this relationship. They were aware of this relationship. In fact, everything that a lot of which what our sages teach us about the relationship between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David is based on the events that occurred between Shaul and David. Okay, So they were aware of each other in this way. And there's even a case where David, later on in the story, when Shaul was relentlessly pursuing David to kill him, and David had the opportunity to slay Shaul with his own sword, and he did not do that. And then he was being criticized by his men. How could you? One of his men was like, "How could you miss that opportunity?" He's like, "What are you talking about? He's the Mashiach." David said that about Shaul. Okay, so just understand that this story is not, if you know, any filmmaker that's, you cannot be, you can be a non-Jew, but you have to be an absolute expert in the entire Torah tradition and to understand all the nuances and the subtleties and the delicacies. The I say delicacies not in the sense of like, something. You have to be delicate with every one of these issues because there's so much to unpack. There's so much to understand. And I don't even know how it's possible to depict this on film, right? Because there's so many layers. But you have to try. And if you're not going to even try, then it's a pointless undertaking. Okay. So you're just telling some kind of retarded nursery rhyme, and you're not accomplishing anything. You're obvious. Anyway, I'm going to
You want to
stop.
make the movie, Frank?
I'd love to, but
Seems like you
that
have
seems
all that information.
that seems like something that's going to be like for the times of the Messiah. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll make a movie. Maybe Mashiach when Mashiach.
Frank, you
Yeah.
know what movie should be made? And I already wrote a screenplay for it in my head in like 30 seconds. Not now, but before. You know how in the last 25 or so years, you see these stupid romantic comedies, and more often than not, usually set in Manhattan, right? More often than not, it's a Jewish guy or somebody that's played by a Jewish guy with a non-Jewish lady, right? He goes out with Jewish ladies, or maybe he doesn't
Keep,
even do that, and then
keeping the
he
faith.
whatever. That's just one, but like we have other ones where it's just like not it's implicit. It's not talking about Jewish versus not and non-Jewish. It's just implicit that that's a guy gets together or like meet the parents, that kind of thing, right? Uh, I have an idea for a movie. Uh, a Jewish guy from Manhattan, right? American Jewish guy, like whatever, lefty secular parents or classical liberal parents, let's say, Ashkenazi guy. He is dating, and he's having trouble in dating in Manhattan, right? And then he sees like a thing for he's like in master's program, or med school, whatever. He sees a thing for are you whatever single Jewish and you have you ever been to Israel? No. Birthright, okay? He goes on Birthright, and one of the evenings they're like in Tel Aviv or something like that, and they're in a club and he meets this like gorgeous Sephardic Israeli girl, right? And then they ended up like it ends up being like fun, but then they end up like actually going on dates. He stays in Israel after the trip. They fall in love. Okay, now comes the whole like basically the whole plot, which is basically like, you know, uh my big fat Sephardic wedding, right? So the Ashkenazi parents come to Israel because they're engaged now, right? So they come to Israel to visit her parents, and it's like Moroccans and Iraqis, Moroccan and Iraqi Jews in whatever, Petah Tikva, Rosh Ha'ayin, pick a city in the center of Israel. And the mother of the guy is sitting there. She's like allergic to everything under the sun. They're trying to feed her like hummus and like food, real food. And then the mother of the girl, they're all like speaking Hebrew, so they're all like, like what's wrong with her? What is she like? Goya, like what is she like? Not Jewish? She doesn't want to eat this. She doesn't want to eat that. The sister, the aunt, the grandmother is like they're all like, what the heck is going on over here? And then you see the father of the
You could have
guy.
all the same actors for my
Yeah,
big
yeah, yeah,
fat.
yeah, exactly, right. And the father of the guy of the Ashkenazi father, he's just like talking to like these Iraqi guys, Moroccan guys, and he's just like, I came to volunteer um, on a kibbutz once in the 80s. And this was right during the Lebanon War, and I wanted to volunteer for the IDF, but they wouldn't take me. And he goes into this whole thing. So he's just like he's showing like who, that he's like this Ashkenazi American guy. and then you have this whole thing of like these guys are just like wondering what the hell. So what's the point of the movie? The point of the movie is to show that there are other Jews besides the people that you see in freaking Manhattan.
Greg,
Yeah, no, just give me 1 second. And the second point of the movie is that so Jewish guys marry Jewish girls. So they go to freaking Israel and marry Jewish girls.
Greg, you know how like sometimes movies like Tropic Thunder, they have like movies within movies.
Oh, you're saying don't go retard?
No, they have like, well, yeah, but you know, Tropic Thunder, they
Yeah,
played segments from
yeah,
Simple Jack.
yeah.
Remember? So this, I have an idea for a movie. The movie is about a guy like me
Hmm.
who was forced to go watch this movie that you're describing by his wife, and I'm sitting there in the theater,
No, you can
and I,
make it good. You can make it good. You can make this
and I'm
very,
like,
very good.
and I'm like this, and she's like, you know, all delighted, and
Dude,
I'm
I
like,
just gave you
oh.
I didn't give you the script. I just gave you the outline. The script could be very, very, very good. I guarantee you. If you actually sit down, if maybe I sit down or somebody who knows how to write and
There are
gets
many
it,
delightful movies where I'm sitting there like, ugh.
I hear you. But
And
you
then
can,
she's like, "Eh," and then she looks at me, he's like, "Why are you such a sourpuss?" And I'm
yeah,
like,
no, 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 no. I would
"Ugh."
make this with men in mind. With men in mind.
Okay.
I would not make this, I would
Right.
not make this, this is not going to be a romantic comedy for, ladies will enjoy it, but it's not because I targeted ladies for them to enjoy this. Like, oh, I want to make sure I get the female demographic. No, like I want men to watch this movie and say, shit, I'm going to Israel to find a wife. Like, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm talking to myself also. So,
I
um,
say go for it, Greg. I'm not going to see it though, but go for it.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the
I'll give you moral
unequivocal
support.
support.
I'm sure. No, but the thing is, this is an idea that I feel will be very popular.
I
This is
wouldn't do it for
something that my
popularity. I
wife
would
would
do it
want to
with a
watch.
goal to stop intermarriage. How's that?
Okay, you can do that.
Like, and every dude, you know that there's an organization in Israel called Lechava. Their goal is to stop intermarriage, and they get shat on constantly. I don't, folks, if you're watching this podcast and you're an American Jew and you think that a person who wants to stop the intermarriage of Jews is bad, is evil, is racist, иди нахуй.
I have, yeah, but no, I don't see. I like their intention, but they
Whose
don't know how
intent?
to.
Whose intention? Lechava?
This organization
I'm
that
talking about
wants.
anybody. Dude,
I
you know
know how to
that you
stop
know you know that
intermarriage.
you know that Rage, the organization that I went to, Russian American Jewish Experience, the rabbi's goal was not to make people religious. The rabbi's goal was to stop intermarriage. And you know what? He succeeded 95%. Eric, is that correct?
Eric, is it correct?
Rabbi Tokarsky.
Eric is making a racket with ice, so he couldn't hear you.
The goal of rage is to make Jewish babies.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. And he
Okay,
succeeded. He
and
succeeded.
none of you are going about it correctly, and I know how to do it.
Thank you.
But you know, as usual, whenever the information as to do what it takes is known, it's never done.
So
You have
what's
to remove, in some ways, you know how like the Spartans, right? They would remove kids from their mothers,
yeah.
and they would raise kids in a military setting from the very, very beginning.
Hmm.
It's kind of like that, except uh, you have to the influence of the Jewish mother is so strong that the male characteristics that need to develop are literally stunted
Yeah.
by by mothers, and then therefore those same mothers, if they weren't the mother of that Jewish boy, and now they're the young Jewish women, right? Before they become mothers, they're not attracted to that male
Yeah.
that was raised by the Jewish mother. So you're literally killing the nation by
Yeah.
allowing the mother to be dominant.
Yeah. You want to know the irony, man? Like, I don't, probably
You need to have you need to have an angry Russian Jewish father.
well, in our families, I can't say my father was like a super dominant dad like this, but at the end of the day, my father came from a home where the father was, more or less the dominant one. My grandfather was a military guy, three sons. My dad was the youngest of three boys. And my dad kind of tried to, again, he wasn't like this typical macho guy, but yeah, he tried to emulate that. And that's, yeah, Russian Jewish homes. It's kind of, if not the man is completely dominant, it's at the very least balanced, tries to be balanced in that way. Um, yeah, I think that's good. But yeah, from what I see in the American home, I think in the American home, everybody's just straight up soft, like everybody. Everyone. It, it's like the Mort Goldman disease from Family Guy.
Uh, Urban Americans in general are soft,
Yeah.
but with
But
the
even the
Jews,
su
it's
even
like
the
an
suburb
extra level.
even the suburban, even the people who live in, suburban America.
The urban
Yeah.
suburban ecosystem,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
soft.
Non-rural.
Country
Yeah.
boys are still
Yeah.
you'll still
Yeah.
find, you know, thank God, some
Yeah.
real men in the country.
Yeah.
But even that, you know,
The funniest thing to me is, American Jewish girls who grow up with, like, let's just say, even like parv classical feminism and university stuff and university ideas, today's university. And then, they are the way they are. And then they go to Israel, like, on a trip, and they see these army guys, and it's like these army guys actually fly in the face of everything these girls believe. If an American Jewish guy tried to act like an Israeli army guy, she would call that guy a misogynist, right?
yeah,
But then she goes to Israel and she meets an Israeli guy. Oh yeah, it's just an Israeli guy in his habitat. I can't call him a misogynist. Or if they do, it's like in jest, but they're still attracted to them, right?
right.
But if a guy like me behaves that way, misogynist. Or I had this one girl tell me, literally, I had
Your only problem is that you give a shit.
no, 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 but it's just funny. Like, whatever, a video date with this girl last week. She grew up in a religious family. You have this alpha male energy about you.
Yeah, but you see, what you should have done
Hilarious. Yeah, I
had
should have
you
said
look,
something.
no, what you should have done would
I know.
be like, that's right, baby. You know what I mean? Like,
But I told you why I didn't do that, because I wasn't interested in her. But
because you
yeah,
didn't weren't interested in her. But
yeah,
I'm saying,
yeah,
like, you should get in the practice of doing that anyway.
yeah, true.
Just out of, just kind of
I
like,
was just being me. Like, I wasn't even like,
I'd like to get back to the discussion of
yeah.
King David and King Saul. How the hell
No,
did we
but
get here?
this is connected though. Whatever. It's connected. King David and King Shaul. Yeah, no, I just wanted to tell you that, again, the way they depicted
I knew this was going
some
to get him. Somehow
what,
you're
the
gonna
show?
suck me in to the date, to the modern current dating.
No, 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 no. I don't even want to go. Whatever. No, actually, I just had a whole conversation with a
Try
friend
to
of
get
mine.
away and stuck me back in.
No, no, no. I had a whole conversation with a friend of mine that,
Got my
we
line.
basically settled on the fact that, that when you and I spoke about this already a bunch of times, that at least in my case, becoming religious because of the path I went through, or the filter, or the, whatever, the people I was involved with, the teachers, it largely took away a lot of my so-called abilities that I had before with respect to interacting with ladies.
You were declawed.
Yes. And I had to slowly grow my
You lost your bear claw.
well, I had to slowly grow my claws back
Yeah.
over the last, whatever, how many years. So I was just talking to a friend of mine about that, and how basically, if you what happens is, if you're a guy in the so-called yeshiva system. If let's say if you're a young guy and you end up getting married, let's say before the age of 25 in the what's called Orthodox dating framework, great. But if that doesn't happen, and then, after a certain age, you're, so to speak, out at sea and you're still trying to do it that way, A, it may not work. B, the rabbis have no idea what's going on out there. They have no idea what's going on in the Jewish singles dating scene, what kind of a cholent it is. And so we basically said that, like, at the end of the day, all bets are off, and you just got to go back to, like, you got to go back to the clause, or at least I have to, and that's it. That's the solution. And like you said, I should just stop caring about people's little
Listen.
side comments.
Listen, you remember when Princess Leia, she said to Han Solo, she goes, "You're what was the line?" She's like, "You're a scoundrel." He's like,
Yeah.
"Scoundrel." Remember? And then he's like,
Yeah, yeah,
he got all encouraged.
yeah.
Okay, so listen, I'm not saying you got to be a scoundrel, but
No.
just understand when some lady says to you, "I got a real alpha," if I feel that's some
Yes,
compliment, bro.
yes.
It doesn't matter how she means it
Yeah,
internally.
yeah. Yeah. I was, whatever. She made it feel said Mickey Mouse Club, boo boo bee boo. That's what she sounded like. Anyway.
My God, it's horrible. Anyway, so God. Audience, please pray for Greg.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, David and Saul, man. God, he took me down this shithole.
I'm sorry.
All right. So
I honestly, I don't even know how the hell we got. Oh, I was talking about my stupid movie that'll never get made. But anyway, go on.
Oh,
Continue.
that sounds like a movie that'll get made. My movie, dude. Whenever you try to do something right,
Yeah.
like accurately,
Yeah.
then the whole universe will fight you on it.
Of course it will.
Your movie, like wonderful. You know what I mean? Like people
Yeah.
love that kind of crap.
Yeah.
I'll support you.
I don't
'Cause
know, dude. I
want
won't
to be
make it.
financially
I won't
successful.
make it in the way that you think. Whatever. Anyway.
All right. So so basically,
I can pay for that if you actually make it like
his movie,
I know a guy who
Yep.
he's in the business of that.
Eric can hook you up with a fund.
Like making turning screenplays into like reality,
It's
turning screenplays into reality, into like actual something that happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, folks, you heard it here.
A guy he knows. I know.
Off the back of a truck.
Yeah.
There's a guy.
Oh, nice.
He got a guy.
You know a guy.
From wow, I shouldn't have smoked. I think they're from Rabbi Kitsin's high school.
Okay. Oh, Sinai Academy.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's where I went.
Sinai Academy. Sinai, you're the leader. Sinai Academy. That's as far as I'll go with that.
That's fine. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about David, just a
Yes.
tiny bit. The way David is portrayed is horrible. Everything that I spent a lot of time on David, thinking about David, reading his writing, reading whatever commentaries are available to me from the Torah tradition. And here's who David is. Has anybody ever known a person so gentle and so kind and so mild in their presence that they could literally never hurt a fly. Like you can never imagine, like literally the sweetest kid in your school who everybody shits on.
Yeah.
And yet it doesn't deter him. It doesn't allow his, no matter like other people's negativity.
Yeah.
For some reason, does not seem like it can like deter his shine.
You want to hear something funny? in the series, when they're riding on the horse, the two sisters, Michal is, she's sitting in the back of the horse and she's singing like a tune that she heard from that David made up, like a prayer. And she's
Yeah.
like, like whatever. And then her sister's like, oh, you still think about, something like you still think about that David. And then she's just like, I don't want to talk about him. She's like mad or something, whatever. She's like, I don't, she wants to forget about him. But then like they keep riding and they go, and then she keeps going, like humming his tune. It's funny.
Everybody is so like people like he's like a little bit slightly not of this world, David. Like he's such a pure soul that he's literally angelic in a certain way where he doesn't understand completely regular people. He doesn't understand the psychological and emotional up like I'm trying to
Dude, in the series, that's how he's depicted. People are just like, how are you like, yeah, he's about to
like
go like fight Goliath. They're like, how the
he's
hell are
not
you?
somebody who knows how to navigate the social hierarchy.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
put
yeah,
it that way.
yeah,
He's not
yeah,
what's that word like savvy.
yeah,
King David is the least
yeah.
savvy human being who
He
ever
was
lived.
he wasn't a political person. He was just going along with what was prophesied about him.
His literal only concern was God.
Yeah, I know.
He had no like he just wanted to do what he wanted to be connected to God. He wanted to do, which is stunning to me for how badly he was treated. Okay. And he could not operate around people. Like he stepped on everybody's toes by accident, like just by existing.
Frank, can I tell you something? I'm not comparing myself
I know.
to David Melk in the least bit. Well, when I came back to America, when I first became religious, and I was like, again, when I first started like
Right.
inserting myself into the religious community, I stepped on toes just by virtue of the fact that like I was trying to do what God wanted.
Greg,
But anyway, continue.
in David's life,
Yeah,
you would hear that
correct, correct,
like all the
correct,
time. It would be
correct,
like
correct. I know he's Larry David or
he,
David David.
he was safer out in the field,
Yeah,
tending to his flock,
yeah,
fighting off lions and bears.
yeah,
Okay, as only he could,
yeah,
and tigers and oh
yeah,
my.
yeah.
Okay,
And they
so
saw him fighting a lion. Yeah.
right, like he was too pure for people. Everybody, first of all, everybody is so like, and we're talking about people in the biblical, who are much greater than us.
Yeah,
But even they
yeah,
were too like, like
yeah,
everybody was
I know.
slightly too savvy.
Everybody had a malfunction.
It's possible, it's possible that he was like this because he was ostracized by his own family, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Okay. And he spent a lot of time out by himself in the fields and around nature with
yeah, yeah,
animals.
yeah,
And all he did was he's just a shepherd who he really just cared about he would go out, and this is characteristic of how God chooses the leaders of Israel, the type of person who would go and find a lost sheep
yeah,
and get it, and because the thought of it suffering out there on its own, scared and or thirsty and hungry, he could not rest. He would
yeah,
go and find a little sheep. A sheep. We're
yeah.
not talking
I
metaphorically,
know.
we're talking about literally a
They
sheep.
they
How much
show
more
that
so?
they show that on the show how he does that.
That's good. So so basically uh David was just like he was a pure, absolutely pure soul who his only interest was doing what God said. He was not socially savvy. Forget about
Yeah,
politically.
yeah, yeah.
He was not socially savvy. Okay. Um,
Can I tell you
he
something real quick?
he was
Yeah,
savvy as a when
yeah,
forced to as
yeah,
a military strategist
yeah,
with the help of God, of course. He was a
yeah,
prophet.
yeah,
Okay. And so this is who David was.
yeah,
And 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 he did not have jealousy anger or these kind of these kind of like strange hangups
Yeah.
that people had who when they were around him, people felt when they were around him, they felt a certain like insecurity because I don't know, his purity was too overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like his simple faith and his pure connection to God was just it was like an anomaly to people.
You know what's interesting? His in the show. I mean, probably I don't know if this was like this is in Tanakh. Yishai, his father, Yishai's first wife, because the way Yishai is like talking to David when in the show, and he's like, this is when he's telling him that what David's mom told him before she died. So before that, he goes, I married my first wife, you should know, and it was like this expedient marriage. I chose my wife well based on the tribal stuff, right? And I had your brothers, we had your brothers, strong boys, very, men of whatever, war, battle. And then she passed away, and then my next wife was your mother, and this was a person who I never thought, she came from a completely different, culture, completely different people, and a type of person I never even thought I would be with, but we had a love that you can't even, an unmatched love. So I think that because like he's I mean, this is the depicted in the show. He's a product of this like,
Well,
unworldly love.
okay,
So that, yeah.
can I tell you what I learned about his mother? Okay, so what had happened was that Yishai was, it's important to point out that David's father, I think in English they call him Jesse,
Yeah, Jesse.
but in Hebrew it's Yishai.
Yishai, yeah.
Yishai was one of the, I forgot how many people, 11 people in all of history who never committed one sin in their entire life.
Correct.
And they only died by virtue of God's decree that
Yeah.
all men must die.
Yeah.
Folks, the reason that's significant is generally speaking, uh, you know, had God not decreed that specific decree, then then even without that decree, a man's sins can condemn him to death. Right? Even if God created a situation where people didn't have to die, where there was no real cap on human, a sin could kill someone.
Yeah.
So therefore, so Yishai was one of those people who would never die. He had never sinned in his life.
Do you know how I learned about, I first heard the name Yishai when we have our prayer books, Sidurim, we have, a part, I guess it's in the Kedusha. There's a repetition where we're repeating what the angels say, and it says, David ben Yishai Avdecha Meshichecha, like David, son of Jesse, a servant of like like Mashiach, our Mashiach, the servant of God, whatever it is. So you always wonder, like, why do they even have to mention in the prayer and say David ben Ishai?
Yeah.
Not just David ben Ishai. They have to say Ishai.
I've seen references to the Mashiach as just Ben Yishai, just the son of Jesse.
Yeah.
Simply.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I had learned is that somebody had told him, I think Doeg or people from that mindset, that David that his wife, who I believe was the mother, that David had the same mother as all the rest of his brothers. That's how I learned it. And then when Yishai had heard that he himself might perhaps not be halachically Jewish, Yishai, Jesse himself, thought that because of what he had heard about his great grandmother, Ruth, that he might not be Jewish. He thought he was Jewish his whole life, and then out of nowhere, he's like, "Oh my God, I'm not Jewish. I can't be married." Now that I know that, I can't be married to my Jewish wife. he was so pious. He's like his whole life he was the holiest Jew, and then somebody put that into doubt, his status as a member of the covenant, and so he's like, oh, so he was still the same righteous soul, right? So he's like, okay, so I'm not Jewish. Okay, so fine, I'm just a righteous non-Jew, but I have to still follow the law of God, and I can't. I'm not allowed to be married to my proper Israelite wife. So he separated from her, even though she's like, you're insane. It's not true what you're talking about. Stop it. He couldn't, and he separated from her. And then thinking that he was a non-Jew, he uh he married one of their assistants in their household, who was a Canaanite woman, who was of that. I don't. That's a slight guess. The fact that she wasn't Jewish. The fact I'm not sure if she was a Canaanite. Let's just say she wasn't Jewish,
um,
and he ended up taking her as a wife, meaning she agreed to be his wife. And but his real wife, his original wife, his Jewish wife, the mother of all of his children, knew that he was wrong, and would refuse absolutely to marry another man. But being a human being, she wanted a husband. She did not want to separate from her husband.
Yeah.
So she one night dressed up like the Canaanite woman. And in those days, when couples would cohabit, it would be in the absolute darkness.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like the famous story of Jacob and Leah, right? Okay. So he didn't know that one night he was with his real wife, who he thought that he had properly divorced.
Yeah.
When she became pregnant, his real wife, with David, okay, it went into question who was the father. Okay, and now there was this kind of like weird limbo where he technically separated from her, right? He's not Jew, but then I don't know if there was an actual like divorce, but she wasn't married to another guy. So who did like he was born out of wedlock, like David? So because of that, and because of his physical appearance, there was a question as to the moral standing of his mother. And that's why David was ostracized by his brothers, because they did not know if he was in fact a mamzer or not, or some kind of questionable of some kind, that whether or not, like, who really was his father and all this kind of stuff. Okay. There's a lot of details to the story I'm leaving out. But that's the Torah tradition. What you're describing is I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
Okay. So David was, his brothers were all extremely like tall and handsome and royal looking, and they had more of a common tribesman of Judah look.
Yeah.
More olive skinned, darker hair, Mediterranean look. Okay. Not dark, just something like you, perhaps like me.
A little bit.
David was fairer skinned, with light eyes and red hair, which was not unheard of.
I don't know why they got a flippin' Egyptian kid. When he's from America. He's from America. The kid that
Because that's how they expect David to. They're not going on accuracy. They're going on cultural expectations,
appropriation
of current cultural expectations. Okay,
Yeah.
you can't make David a white boy.
Yeah.
which he was, right? So the other tribes, like the tribes of Joseph, Levi, they had way more common. They had blonde, blue-eyed guys, red hair. Those features were far more common in the other Israelite tribes. Okay. But even no, but it was not terribly uncommon in the tribe of Judah. But in that family, in Yishai's family, the physical characteristics of the men were they had darker hair. Okay, and David was shorter than his brothers. He was like short and stocky. He was like he was compared to his brothers. He wasn't short, but compared to his brothers, they're all these tall, handsome, royal looking guys, right? So because of all those things, there was some wonder about David. Now they didn't ostracize him like officially, his brothers. They didn't like, they weren't like, oh, you're banished, this and that. They just his brothers loved him, but they were not sure about him. They were emotionally connected to him and they loved him, but they weren't sure as to his status. And it was in those times, family purity was everything. And if you have somebody in your household where there's a question as to what's going on there, it's rough. It's just rough. So because of all that, David, he spent a lot of time on his own. But that time he spent on his own in the fields, in the wilderness with his sheep, defending them against predators, spent all his time alone with God. That afforded him that, developing that relationship with God. And he was a prophet essentially his whole life. And he was, so again, the main thing I'd want people to take away from this is that David was that sweet kid throughout his whole life. I know, everybody's thinking, what about all the wars he fought? Okay. God forced him into all that. That's just a side note. All right. But on his own, David was a sweet kid who, I'm trying to think of a character in a movie. And I don't mean this, and I don't mean this in I God forbid to offend, but like, think about a loyal dog who, even like to an abusive owner, he still just wants to be next to you and just wants to be loved by you. And it's heartbreaking when you see such a sweet, pure love, and the caretaker of the dog is abusive. He's a prick who doesn't deserve it. That's kind of what David was like to everyone, to his own family, to his own brothers. Everybody's like snapping at him all the time, and he's just like, what did I do? You know what I mean? Like, just read the verses. He was literally too pure for this world.
Yeah.
And then God forced him into all these horrible, violent conflicts. Now, luckily, he was a great warrior, and he knew, he was trained early on in fighting predators. Like, he was fighting like nowadays on Israel, right? In Israel, like, it's different than how it was back in the day. You had full-size lions.
Yeah.
You had bears. You had tigers. You had serious predators, like stuff like, this is ancient times. I mean, they're freaking dragons and God knows what else, freaking ogres and trolls and, I'm freaking ice giants. I'm embellishing. I'm not embellishing. I'm using a little bit of shtick, but things were a little bit different back then. Okay. And he fought off that stuff. He'd fight off bears. Okay. So, he got to start in fighting big, mean predators pretty early. Okay. And he'd do it to protect the flock. That's what he was like. Okay. And he was a pure soul. And for instance, people think of what happened with Bathsheba and Uriah the Hittite. Remember that whole thing? Well, here's what happened, folks. David is a prophet, and he's one of those people who realized that anything that he sets eyes upon it must be that God is talking to him. And very often it was like official prophecy that it was occurring while he was witnessing something. Um, he accidentally saw Bathsheba bathing. And when he saw her, he had a prophecy about her that she was going to be the mother of Mashiach. That Mashiach, he knew that Mashiach was going to come through his line. Okay. He was already the king at this point. And so once he had that information from God, all he wanted to do was make that happen, was to produce the Messiah. And he wanted to do that to make, quickly without delay. Okay. Now, people who depict him as some kind of horny, dirty old man are going to be in a lot of trouble. Not with him, but with once they realize the shameful, slanderous way in which they have thought about King David and even spoke about him, God forbid, you're gonna be sorry that you ever even thought such a
Basically, every so-called writer about religion for Haaretz newspaper in Israel,
them. Okay.
and Times of Israel, and all these other guys.
David was not a person who he was not like them, like those writers who really lust after women and stuff like that. David's only concern was God.
They're projecting. They are projecting.
Yeah. Okay. David was his only concern was God's will and to complete the rectification of the world. Okay, bring the Messiah or be the Messiah, build God's house, the temple, and just do whatever God had in mind for him. Okay, so so you had this guy Uriah, who happened to be he was her to-be husband. He had not consummated. See, marriage situations were a little bit different in ancient times. You you had something called an engagement, and then the consummation. So you could be engaged to someone for a long time, and that's considered a level of marriage. It's a level of marriage, even if you had not yet consummated. And even though it's not a complete marriage, if you were to be with another, if you're a woman who was with another man, even during this like pre-consummation marriage like relationship, then that is considered adultery. Okay. Now, what most people don't understand is that when men went out to war in ancient Israel, right? If it was a voluntary service, okay, certain wars were involuntary. They were like nations were marching against your territory, and everyone had to fight. It was not even a choice. But when certain wars are voluntary, where it's not one of those situations. So King David had a captain. One of his captains was Uriah the Hittite. That's the English translation. He wasn't really a Hittite. The reason he had that name, we'll talk about it another time. So he had this kind of tentative pre-marriage engagement to Bathsheba. But he was when he was one of King David's captains, and he would go out to war pretty often. And when men would go out to war in those situations, they would divorce their wives before going out to war. Okay, King David was incapable of committing just a sin. Just like he wouldn't he was not like consciously capable of breaking the law, breaking God's law. It's not something that he was capable of doing. Okay, so there was a situation where Uriah had done an offense against King David, which warranted the death penalty. According to Torah law, if you insult the king, especially in public, the king, he's not even allowed to pardon you. So there's, that whole interaction is recorded in the scripture, in the verses, where Uriah 3 times disrespected the king in front of the chain of command in public. And David, who was always trying to be as merciful as humanly possible in every situation, was trying to figure out a way to not have him killed when the law demanded it. And David was known for this because Shimei, who hurled insults at David, this is before David was recognized as the king by all of Israel, right? This is when he was riding with his 400 men, right? There was a Benjaminite named Shimei who was like hurling insults at him, and his men were like,
Shimei.
Okay, and his men were like, my king, it is incumbent upon us. We have to follow the law. He did publicly insult the king. He has to be put to death. And he's like, just let him go. Just let him go. And he was criticized for that. It was like, it was almost as if it seemed he was being irreligious. Like he was like, disregarding the law. But what had happened was that David had a prophecy about him. And he knew that in the future, this Shimei would be his descendant, would be the savior of Israel. Mordecai was the descendant of this Shimei, of this man who was hurling insults at David. So David, God gave him essentially had to let him live.
The insight, yeah.
So that he would produce Mordecai in the future.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in this case, Uriah made it impossible. So instead of outright execution, what David did was he sent him to the front lines, which he did all the time anyway. That was his full-time job. He was a military captain, always fighting on the front lines. But like this, if he was to be killed, which is always a high likelihood, right? Then that would, David would consider that would be the execution, right? But at least give him a chance to survive. And it's the same, it's basically the same level of danger he puts him in anyway. That's how David handled it.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was not terribly conscious of what this looked like to the outside world.
Yeah.
Right? The woman, his interest in the woman was purely godly, was to produce a certain offspring who was supposed to be the Messiah, the savior of the entire earth, of the universe, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And David was not a guy who was starved for female attention. He was the king, and he was handsome and charming and had a lot of wives, and could that was not an issue. Okay, people need to remember that. Okay,
it's almost like I'm not comparing obviously Trump to David, but like when people are saying, oh, there's like people accusing like say Trump of being a Russian spy, right? And I say, why? No, they're saying he's a spy since like 1987. He's been playing like this long game. Why? Because he lost all his money, and then the KGB, basically gave him all this money, and then in exchange they asked him to be a spy for them, right? And now that Putin is in, so now he's like continues the whole thing for Putin, right? And it's almost like you're just kind of like, what? The guy doesn't have to be doing any of this. He doesn't owe anybody anything. Like he even says, I could be sitting on a beach. He can have any, he could have had it, if you want to talk about women, also any woman, whatever, like his type, but any woman that he wanted. Giving up his salary.
Only the best.
Yeah.
He had a competition every year.
Yeah.
For like, all right, if I had to pick one, it'd probably be her. That's how the competition started.
Yeah, no,
like,
even when listen. Here's a guy. Now here's a guy when he's getting sued. He says, "I wouldn't touch that lady with a 10-foot pole." Dude, he gets sued by a woman for whatever, right? Some sexual stuff. And he literally says in the deposition, she's not really my speed. Dude, can you imagine Bill Clinton responding
She's
with
not
that?
the,
Can you
she's
imagine
not
Bill
the
Clinton
one.
responding with something like that? You know, like Jennifer Flowers or the other one, what's her face?
Right.
Lewinsky. Do you think he would say,
You don't have
do
the
you think,
cards, buddy.
yeah, do you think I go for something like that? You know?
He's like, she said that
Yeah,
I did this, I did that. I looked
yeah,
at her
yeah,
horse face over there.
yeah.
She's not the
Dude,
one.
it's
She's not the one.
and you believe him because he's not lying.
He's not lying.
He doesn't love to lie. You love lies. He does not.
I married tens. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, have you
Oh,
seen my wife?
which is why I'm shocked that Clinton is a decent looking guy, but he had to like go and I did not have sexual relations with that dude. Just like like come on,
The big
man.
lie is believing that Bill was in love with Hillary.
Oh my goodness gracious.
No
Anyway.
one knows it.
So just to finish off, David, we'll get back.
Anyway,
That's funny.
sorry, I had to
No,
interject
no,
this shtick.
no, I appreciate the stick. So, so King David, so again, but this whole situation, right? It is considered a sin,
Yeah,
right? Everything I said was true, right? And based on, based on Jewish law, he did not transgress the law. He did not adulter.
yeah,
He did not send a man to his death so he can have his wife.
yeah.
Okay. But it looked to everybody else that that's what he did because he was so obtuse
Yeah.
about appearances.
Yeah.
He was not a person, like I said, he might have been the least savvy person, the least socially savvy person who ever
Yeah.
lived.
Yeah.
It's almost autistic.
That's probably
Someone would
that's
he had
probably my problem.
a little bit. He had so little self-awareness of what his behavior might look like to others.
Yeah,
Some people, that's all they care, that's all they're consumed with,
I know.
right? And they have no genuine moments in their life. They just are concerned with appearances. They don't want to appear to be irreligious.
Yeah.
David was the most religious man who ever lived, but he couldn't bother to appear to seem that.
He couldn't be bothered to put on a black hat.
All right, let's not go there, okay?
Kidding.
He wouldn't care. David's like, okay, well, I'll put on any hat you want. Just leave me alone. I want to pray to God. And he was all religious. He was all religiousy.
He was a settler. He was like,
he was pretty religious.
One of those guys.
David was a religious guy. It's safe to say he was a very, very religious
He's a
man.
very,
Okay?
very firm guy. Yeah.
He was a very firm guy. Okay, so he had just a pure faith and a pure service to God. But he was just too obtuse. And it showed, and there's a story literally in the verses that prove how little he understood what he appeared like to others. When the prophet Nathan came to him, Natan, and told him the story of the rich man and the poor man, do you recall? With the sheep. The rich man, he said, there was a rich man and who had many, 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 many sheep. And he was walking by and he saw a poor man who had only one little sheep.
Mm-hmm.
And the rich man, I'm paraphrasing the story, took the sheep and he condemned the poor man and the story infuriated David so badly. He's like, who's this rich guy? Let me get I'll kill him. He's he felt so bad for that poor man with the one little sheep. Yeah. Where Nathan's like, you're the rich man. Yeah. And Uriah, and he's like, oh my God, that's how it looks like. Yeah. He's like, I have sinned. And he repented immediately. Yeah. He knew he did the wrong thing. Yeah. The whole thing, his entire approach to that situation, he thought he was doing things right. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe how obtuse.
Frank, this is like what essentially I'm realizing happens with me in business. I come into a situation thinking that all I'm doing is, simply asking a person, in the nicest way possible to do something, like for example, pay me a bill on time, right? Not realizing, you know, like for example, I'm coming to a particular person and they owe me a bill and I'm coming to them like a day before Purim, right? But here's the thing. And I think I don't know if I mentioned this to you or someone else, and you probably experienced the same thing. If I had owned that guy money and he came to me before Purim and I objected or I told him, hey man, I'm busy, it's Purim, he would get infuriated at me and threaten to take me to Beis Din. But
Tell the
if
folks
I
how much based in, folks, Greg.
to Jewish, adjudication court,
The religious court.
religious court. But if I come to him before Purim asking for something he owes me and he's overdue by 2 weeks, he gets angry at me for doing that. Okay. And then I come to him about another month goes by and now it's almost Pesach and he still owes me money. And I come to him and say, hey, what's the story? And he tells me there's this whole situation. Sorry, whatever. Some lady bought one of the cases from him. Can you now make me a new invoice where we owe you less and we'll pay that? I said, no, we'll just send you a new box. Okay, man, we're busy. Let's talk after Pesach. It's Pesach. So if I did that to him, he would he would threaten to take me to Beis Din. But I have to eat shit and like it and be nice. And if I just so happen to pipe up, I'm the asshole.
I'm gonna hurt your feelings right now,
Please
Greg.
hurt my feelings, Frank.
I don't want to though.
Please do it. I should take him to Beis Din, shouldn't I? And I'm an idiot.
King David would never tell such a story.
He would just say, suck it up.
He wouldn't
I'm
even say that.
I'm not King David.
No, none of us are.
Yeah.
None of us are. None of us can ever understand the simple loyalty, love that King David was. His greatest grief ever was to find out that King Saul was killed in battle. After everything that Saul did to him, it crushed him. His love for Shaul was so, like I said, the only thing you could ever imagine was like a dog who you can't, who cannot be unloyal. I'm mad at God for how for how rough David's life was.
Yeah.
Like David's like, shut up. He's like, what are you talking about? God's great. You don't even know what you're talking about,
Well,
He's like, I don't need to stick up for me.
Well,
I
I
love
think,
God.
well, can I put something forth? And this is even depicted again in the series that I feel like a person who's so tapped into knowing what God does and maybe even why God does it cannot be mad or at the very least can understand why God would put him in such certain situations and that person can even overcome those situations. Meaning he had like the advantage of literally almost, I want to say almost being in the mind of God at any given moment in
He
time.
was a prophet. Yeah, David
Yeah.
had,
So
to put it mildly, he had some information that we don't have.
So yeah, so meaning if he had some information, just like we spoke about this, the Klausenberg Rebbe had some information.
You want
Because
to tell the folk at home what we're talking about here? Because I can't
What?
bring myself to tell the story of
The
the close.
Klausenberg Rebbe was a big rabbi in Europe, and he went through the Holocaust, and he lost his entire family, including 11 children, his first wife and 11 children. And then he survived, and then he came to first he came to Brooklyn. He got remarried. He had more children. Founded a Hasidic court in Brooklyn. Then he moved to Israel, and he founded a Laniado hospital in Netanya. And the person lost his whole family, and you could say, how is a person like that? There are other people who were religious and then stopped being religious after the Holocaust. So how does a person like that, remain who he is and keep growing and keep building and not completely crumble into dust? And so we concluded that he had information that other people did not have. People like him get information. And so when you have certain information, you can go on. You can soldier on, as it were.
And this is just our speculation, folks.
That's our speculation because there's no other way unless you are psychotic, which I don't think he was.
He
Yeah,
was not.
he was not. So yeah, I mean, listen, can I tell you? Listen, my grandfather was a what is it called? He was an officer in World War II. He was from a place called Berdichev in Ukraine, home of the Levi Yitzhak of Berdichev. And so my grandfather lost his first wife and my great grandfather. They were liquidated by the Nazis. And then so my grandfather, after the war, he came back to Berdichev and he found the Ukrainian guy and he shot the guy. So that's my grandfather. My grandfather, I mean, he started a family. He married my grandmother, who was 20 years is younger than him. They had three sons, which was very unusual to have more than two kids at that, in the Soviet Union in the 1950s, 40s and 50s. And so that's kind of like what he did. I don't know if my grandfather had any information from Hashem. I think he was just kind of
Well,
like,
that's a movie. You want to make that? Don't make that stupid.
I
Big
know.
bag,
About my grandfather? Yeah,
Sephardic wedding.
I thought about that too.
And while we're
Yeah.
at it, part of the movie should be about my grandfather because he
Yeah.
did the exact same thing.
Yeah. These guys didn't have information from Hashem. They just had, first of all, they were just kind of like, I don't want to minimize what my grandfather did with his life, but I think that my grandfather was probably like, I'm one of very few men left in this country who's alive, who is of means, and hey, there's a lady who's like way younger than me and I can still have kids with her. Okay, why not? And by the way, my grandfather was sent to jail for 3 months for something called, I'll say it in Russian, it's called halatnost. Halatnost means criminal negligence, meaning, let's say you're a manager at work and some guy who works under you stole and you didn't even see it happen, you weren't even there, you get prosecuted for the crime because you allowed that guy to steal a few pencils from work or something
It
like that.
happened under your watch, right?
It happened under your watch, and now you go. So my grandfather, by the grace of God, by the virtue of the fact that Stalin croaked, my grandfather was released from prison. And then immediately my father was conceived and was born in January 1954. Stalin croaked in March 53. So you kind of do the math on that one. Yeah.
Okay, so now I want to tell my grandfather's true story, actually. We've both spoken about these stories
Yeah, of course.
many times.
It was a while ago. Yeah. So new people up here.
My grandfather, he lived in a Ukrainian village, in a village in Ukraine called Romanov.
Mhm.
It was a small town. It's a very, very small town. There were a lot of Jews. There were also non-Jews. And so when he was deployed to war, okay, and he got word that the Nazis came through his town in Ukraine while he was on some other front and slaughtered all the Jews, including all of his family. His parents, his grandparents, his cousins, aunts, uncles, everybody. And he found out that it was the Ukrainians in his own village who sold out the Jews. They told the Nazis or the Ukrainians who were working with the Nazis, the butchers, the Ukrainian butchers who were doing the killing with the Nazis and for the Nazis of Jews, sold them out to these guys. That they told them where they were hiding. So when my grandfather got back from the front and he got back to his hometown, there were three. He got the information that he got based on his investigation. There were three pieces of shit from his hometown who gave up the location of the hiding spots of his family and everybody else. And the first guy who he caught, he hung him on the town gates. That's how he executed him. The second guy who he caught up with later, and he killed him. I don't know how he killed him. He probably shot him. The third guy had escaped to North America. I don't remember if it was Canada or the United States. My grandfather was planning on finishing the job when he emigrated here to the United States. But when he got here, shortly after he got here, he got throat cancer and died. So that piece of shit might still be out there somewhere. And I tried to get information from my uncle, Felix, who just passed away. And he didn't know. He didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And I was thinking maybe I should finish. Guy's probably dead.
Could be.
But maybe as a kid.
Can I read to you? So here's the I found this is the place. Check this out. Check out these pictures.
Which place?
Romanev.
Oh.
It's now called Dzerzhinsk. So it says
I've never seen it.
Here's the cemetery. And it says the exact period of the cemetery's establishment is unknown. It was established no later than the 19th century. As early as preserved tombstone dates to 1891. Marked on a map from 1890 to 1910s. Jewish residents in Romanev were first mentioned in 1787. During the 19th century, the Jewish population grew from 344 to 1847, 1,847 to 2,600. 46% of the town was Jewish. In 1897, the community maintained a synagogue, a prayer house, and a Talmud Torah. The Soviet authorities opened the Yiddish language elementary school in the 1920s. This is like Yevseksia. The Jewish population stood at 1,720, 24% in 1939. When the Germans arrived in 41, around 3/4 of the Jewish residents remained in the town. They were joined by a few hundred Jewish refugees. Around 1,800 Jews were confined in a ghetto and murdered by October 1941. According to 2001 census, there were 12 Jews in Romanov, then Dzerzhinsk and the surrounding area. This is near Zhytomyr. The exact date of the establishment of the cemetery. Okay. There was a thing at Yad Vashem, but then they took down the link. I don't know. But this is all the pictures I see of Romanov, of the cemetery there. There's other links here. Hold on. There's all this stuff about the town. It's interesting. Holocaust era. Here we go. Survivors' children. Some of these people live
along
in
with
Israel.
local collaborators.
Yeah. Well, here some of these people moved to Israel, to Ramla. Yeah. See, former residents of Romanov and their offspring now live all over the world, including the United States, Israel, Germany, Ukraine. Every year they mark the anniversary on the 25th of August, 1941, the day the Nazis massacred the Jews of Romanov. 25th of August? I wonder what day it was on the Hebrew calendar. Interesting. Courtesy of Tunia Shamis and her family. Alterkovskaya was born in Romanov in 1921 to Bluma Kleiner and Moshe Alterkovsky. I guess it should be Alterkovsky. Oldest child and had 3 younger siblings, Golda, Luba, and Syoma. While studying at the University of Kharkov in 1939, she was conscripted as a nurse for the first Soviet-Finnish War. She continued her studies and took additional. So your grandfather, that was the same grandfather that was in the Finnish War, or was a different one?
No, that was my father's
Father's.
father.
Oh, okay. So it says
My
Tunya.
mother's father, who is from this town, was
Uh-huh.
a little bit younger than
Oh, okay. So it says Tunya and other female students were sent to Novosibirsk. A lot of Jews were sent to Novosibirsk, Siberia, to study. She continued to serve as a nurse in Novosibirsk throughout the war, World War II in hospital, whatever number. Her husband Ilya Shamis served in the Red Army in the topography division of his unit, and serving in the official anti-aircraft division. Tunya and her sister Golda were the only survivors from this Alterkovsky family. Her parents and other siblings were killed in it's a famous massacre, Romanov massacre. After the war, Tuna and Ilya had two daughters, Emily and Elena Shamus. In 1987, the family emigrated to the U.S. I know Shamus family from Chicago. There's a Shamus here in Frontline.
I don't know any Shamus
I know
family.
of Shamus family from, well, Chicago/Milwaukee. Interesting. Small world. Tuna and Ilya regularly visited Israel to meet with their other survivors and former residents of Romanov. Interesting. Massacre. Let's see if they write anything about that. Yeah. Oh, it's just in passing they kind of mention it. There was a whole thing on Yad Vashem, and then it got taken down. I don't know why. Oh, here you go. Mass graves of Holocaust victims in the village of Romanov. Oh, it's a different village. Crazy. I don't know. When this crap ends, my dad and I want to go to Berdichev and find like stuff about my great grandfather. Like, yeah.
I don't like that plan
Why?
because the plan I like is where you won't need to because they will be resurrected and they can tell you
True.
everything.
That's true.
Let's stick to that's plan A.
That's
When
plan
you're
A,
talking
yeah.
about plan B, don't worry
Yeah.
about plan B.
Well, I wanna find out if I'm a Levi, but then my friend told me, don't go searching for that, because if you find out you're a Levi, you also might find out that you're a Cohen. And if you're a Cohen, Baal Tshuva guy, single Cohen, might be problematic. And I said, well, maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe yes, maybe no.
Well, you know what's interesting?
Yes.
We're talking about absolutely nothing that occurred in the past 3 weeks of all the massive events that occurred, which is fine. I'm actually
listen, can I tell you something? Here's
no, I'm not saying,
no,
oh, we didn't do our job.
here's what's occurring. Based on everything that's occurring, and I mentioned this to you guys in an audio, my parents' friends came over for a daytime meal yesterday, and it turned out that they ended up being here for what's called the meal of Mashiach. And I told them this. These are secular Russian Jewish people, and I said to them, "You got
Explain to the folks at home the meal of
the
Mashiach.
meal of Mashiach is the meal, the afternoon meal. Usually, it's after mincha, just before Mariv, like to close out Passover. Here in the diaspora, it's in the eighth day of
The last
Passover.
hour and a half of Passover, of the
Correct.
Passover holiday.
So you're basically sitting and you're basically hoping the Mashiach will come. You're trying to invoke Mashiach to come by like literally. It's literally called the meal of Leviathan. And so I told these people, I said, you guys, the meal, my mother invited you for 4:30. You guys got here at 4:30. Nothing really began until 5 or 5:15. It's already here 6:30. And I said to them, I personally had this elaborate plan to go to Chabad to pray and then be over there. And I said, well, things would have it, I'm here, and now I'm telling you guys that this is a big deal to God that you guys are all here like this, whether you realize it or not. And I said to them, the Rebbe, the Lubavitch Rebbe, would tell his Hasidim about the Feast of Mashiach, but when the Rebbe would say things to his Hasidim, his intention was not just to say it to his Hasidim. His intention was to say it to the whole Jewish world, because he knew that the Hasidim would fan out to the whole Jewish world and tell people about whatever he told them. Before video, before any of this stuff, right? Even though there was video. So I said to them, this is probably bigger for God that you guys are sitting like this than even religious people are sitting. Or as big of a deal to him. And so I told him, the world is crazy. I'm not going to get into who made it crazy and why it's crazy, but it's crazy. And it's crazy to a point where we need intervention, where the guys who can do something, even the guys with good intentions, for whatever reason, are not doing it, or they're just taking their sweet ass time, or I don't know what they're doing. They're playing patty cake and sitting down with this guy, sitting down with that guy. This guy's selling his hotels to Qatar. This guy's, I don't know what they're doing, twiddling the freaking thumbs. I don't know. So clearly, we see that we need something from the outside, namely Mashiach. Okay. So listen, dude, you and I could sit around and we do that. We talk about everything that's going on and whoop-de freaking do, and bells and
Oh,
whistles. But at the end of the day, like, dude, I was talking to a friend of mine. I was just like, I'm literally trying to solve the puzzle of, pardon my language, fucking Witkoff. Okay, there's a whole list of stuff that Grok spit out. I said I asked the question. Tell me everything Qatar owns in America. There's a whole laundry list of stuff. I could read it to you, but whatever.
I
And
can't.
and one of the things, just listen for a second. One of the things was sold to them by two of the things, actually. The Park Lane Hotel, where our friend Eric used to DJ, and the Plaza Hotel, where I had drinks with Roseanne. Okay? Witkoff sold both those things. And the Kushner family owns this building on on Fifth Avenue, partially owns it and partially it's Qatar. Okay? They co-own it with them. So now you ask a question, why would they read all these negotiations with Qatar, with Iran, with Hamas, with all, and now you're trying to figure out, why would Trump have this guy around? I don't
Yeah.
know. My brain's gonna explode trying to figure this damn shit out. Okay. So Mashiach. That's it. I don't have any other solutions. Any ideas, Frank?
Um, some ideas.
Okay. Hang
Uh,
Witkoff? What?
no, the question is, what's Trump thinking?
Yeah,
So he has to know that negotiations are not going to work.
of course he knows.
Okay. So he has to know that everything that Witkoff is trying is not going to work. So the question is, what is he buying time for? What is it about the current situation that he's using this Witkoff guy? I think it's possible, and this is me, like when you're guessing, right? You can always guess on the negative and on positive, right? So let's say we want to be kind to Trump, right? So I'd have to say that part of what's going on with Witkoff is that he wants this guy to expose himself for who he is and what he is, right? A corrupt, possibly, right? Person with a lot of self-interest in this whole situation. I don't that might play a role in it because of the things he says are outrageous. And they're always contradictory to everything that Trump says. Like whenever Trump is
Correct.
personally
Correct.
asked
Correct.
about it, Witkoff seems to be the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
So there's some kind of game being played here.
Yeah.
I don't know to what end though. Because Witkoff sounds nothing like Trump.
Yeah.
It's also possible that Trump is appeasing some of the people who keep saying that he's owned by Israel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
but it's a Jewish guy, and that's first of all. Second of
No,
all,
but
yeah.
no, they don't care. They like
I
their
know.
Jews.
I know.
These Groypers, they love their Dave Smith. They love
Yeah.
their whatever those jackasses
Yeah.
are. Okay. So that's the fact that the guy is Jewish means nothing.
Well, I think it could be what you're saying, that he wants him that guy to expose himself. I think he's also one of the, just on a simple level, he's probably doing this thing, this kind of shtick where it's like, you see, and then we, when we actually do, go like scorched earth on Iran or whatever we do, Trump can say, you see, I let the most diplomatic of all diplomats do his thing. I gave him all these months, I gave him all this time. He did this, he did that. I've exhausted all possibilities. You can't come to me and you can't say that I was Mr. Button, Mr. Coca-Cola Button,
And Mr.
whatever.
Mohawk. Right.
I'm not, I went to the extreme, the lengths, and now I had to do what I had to do because all the things exhausted possibilities. Da, 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 da. So that's simple level. The deeper level could be that Hashem is just kind of,
I didn't really want to talk about Whitcuff because again, it's like it's
it's painful. It's
psychologically
painful.
draining,
Yeah.
painful. And
No, but it must be said because that's everything that's happening is from that, from
well,
him.
I wanted to talk about, like I was saying to people, and I was essentially begging for something to happen in the last days of Pesach, because
So was I. Yeah.
the last days of Pesach, for me personally, like if you ask any Jewish guy who observant Jew who keeps you know, who tries to keep the commandments, right? What's your favorite holiday? Like everybody has their own kind of favorite holiday. A lot of people love Purim. I love Purim. Uh, some people love Sukkot, right? I love the last day of Pesach because we're celebrating
Hmm.
the anniversary of the splitting of the sea. So the sea split 3,337 years ago. And the nation of Israel walked through the sea on dry land. And then the pursuing Egyptian charioteers, they didn't make it through, and the waters collapsed upon them, crushing them, um, which is a great event. Um, and I and I wanted to see something of that nature. I'm not saying, you know, I wanted to see some of Pharaoh's charioteers crushed. I wanted to see some aspect of that energy happen in the world.
Yeah.
Like, after the holiday had passed and then I open up my phone and take a look. I wanted to see some big news. And what's interesting, I'm not sure if I saw that, or I'm not sure if it's clear, if enough time has passed and enough information has been reported yet to actually understand what happened on that day. But a couple of intriguing things occurred on that day. Uh, it happened to overlap with the Christian holiday that to a lot of them is, more important than Christmas. That's significant because when a lot of people in the world converge upon some auspicious day, it has a completely different meaning to them, right? But the fact that there's a powerful energy that means a lot. It's like an astronomical event almost that everybody looks at the same astronomical event and then they have their own interpretation of it. Um, and it's also Hitler's birthday.
Yeah.
So you have those three things, which are very odd, simultaneous. And then the Pope dies.
Yeah. Nice.
I would say that's definitely one of Pharaoh's charioteers,
Oh yeah.
if not Pharaoh himself,
Mm-hmm.
who our tradition says, also um,
Yep.
he was caught in the waters, but he had some aspect of his consciousness survived the converging waters when the waters came back together and crushed all the charioteers. He was caught in there too, but Pharaoh, I think, was the only survivor. But I think that so something just literally just occurred to me that maybe Pharaoh is truly dead now.
Yeah.
Like even though he survived that particular convergence of waters, I think it finally caught up to him.
Yeah.
Now, this is not a knock at Catholicism or Christianity. And actually, a lot of Catholics really don't consider him a real pope anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Because he's a
I'm
Jesuit.
sure
He's a Jesuit.
he was the Jesuit slash commie.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if those are two
Yeah.
different things, and I don't think they ever
Yeah.
were. Okay.
Yeah.
A true enemy of Israel.
Yeah.
A true friend to murdering savages. A true hypocrite.
Yeah.
Who wanted all nations to be flooded with savage armies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cause havoc under the guise of you know welcoming, being welcoming.
Dude, there's a photo of him with like a wooden depiction of baby JC in like a Palestinian kafia in a crib that's like it's like a real photo.
He was an evil man.
Recently.
He was
Horrible.
a very, very evil man. Okay.
Horrible.
Um, and but he was a true enemy of Israel. A true enemy of Israel. Okay.
Yeah.
He's not the only pope that was ever a true enemy of Israel, but this guy was a special level of Israel because Hamas are far, far more. I mean, what could be worse than Nazis? Hamas is worse than Nazis. Um, okay, it seems like you know that whole thing about Pharaoh surviving the converging waters, right, was a temporary thing, and I think what we just witnessed was the completion of Pharaoh's death. It's not the event I was hoping for, but on a symbolic level, it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And it might mean that the world is very, very different now. That his energy and the evil that he brought to the world, and especially against Israel, has been removed. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Do you have that book?
Do I have what?
Do you have that book?
Which one?
Bart Zadok's book. Do you want to read? Do you want to read? By the way, what Bart Zadok, the infuriating, vague message of Bart Zadok.
What the thing that I sent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you
Bart
read
Zadok,
it?
all of his messages are infuriating.
Dude,
Here.
you got to read it slow.
Yeah, I'll read it
Not slow, but you got to
I'll read it. I'll read it more.
read really fast.
Succinct. Here, hold on a second.
Wait, I can read it because you sent it to me. If you want,
I'll just read it, but I'll read it slow. Here, this is written like 16 hours ago.
that's significant because he has not posted anything for months.
And then he wrote another thing 2 hours after that.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, about Hametz, but it's like very short. It's like 2 sentences. Okay, this is written by Rabbi Ariel Barzadok on his Facebook page. Forgive me if I awaken you. Please forgive me for disturbing your sleep. But using the famous phrase, quote, there is a deep disturbance in the force right now. And by the way, I'll tell you what I thought about that. Not everyone is picking up on it. Most are not sensitive to it. But regardless of how sharp or how dull one's mind, spirit/soul may be, the hand of God is very actively working in our world right now in strong but subtle ways. I am not one to predict the future. Such foresight during these times is being jammed. But one does not need the foresight of specifics to see what is happening in general. We are all distracted by so many different things. It is these very distractions that block our inner eye from vision and our inner ability to know the real present course of events. I have long said close your outer eyes so as to open your inner eyes. There is no other way. Even the prayers of slaves is heard in heaven. Even slaves can see with the eyes of Ruach HaKodesh. These are not my words, but those of Eliyahu Hanavi. We are all still slaves. We cannot presently free ourselves from our external prisons. We can emancipate our minds, spirits/souls. All one has to do is awaken within, but this is the hardest struggle of them all. The powers that be make every effort to maintain the servitude of the soul. This is how they feed. And most of us are willing and participating victims. Our world in its present condition can be compared to a chessboard, and each move is being made with calculating consideration. The blind will not see this. The distracted do not care. But even as a slave who opens one's inner eye can see. And with this insight, one will know what is and one will know what to do. I cannot say any more. The time of testing is upon us. The great Havdalah, separation, is happening now. So let it be. The exodus from Egypt is a psychic experience, not just a historical one. So many today are still in Egypt, so many today will be left behind again. The one with inner vision will see the wisdom in all this. The one with inner vision will see how heaven will break one's bonds and set free those who seek and crave freedom. Build the light within you. Seek out the inner still voice to guide you. Place God before you always. Remove your distractions. Fine-tune your reception. That's what he's basically saying. The course of current events will become more and more clear in the coming days. The invisible hand is acting. Dismiss this message if you choose to embrace this message, or if you embrace this message and change if you wish to ascend with the light. Let those who sleep remain in slumber, but as far as those of you awakening, it is time to get out of bed and begin your morning rituals. And as we say, the one who understands will understand. Dude, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Before I read this, before I saw this after Pesach, I was whatever. I was dog sitting my sister's dog, and I would take it out. I would walk it in the morning. I'd walk it in the evening. And so on the walk with this dog on Friday night, so Shabbat night, and also on Saturday night, which is, Yom Tov, Passover, I just had like premonitions. I just had premonitions. And then today, and I forgot to do this actually, I wanted to write on Twitter, and I wanted to even write it on my Facebook, something along the lines of, you know, there's going to be something like mark my words, or just basically there's going to be, or if they, whoever they are, release another so-called shmandemic, it's going to be the same profile virus, like you say, ssRNA. Um, I would say something along the lines of, if you follow these people again off a cliff, don't come complaining to me. But if you don't want to follow them off a cliff, then come talk to me or come talk to my friend Frank. I was gonna write that today. I don't know why. It's like something came over me and I felt compelled to just write that. I forgot to do it. Just whatever. I got busy. I was cleaning, like de-cleaning for, coming out of Pesach mode. And I don't know, just like really like came over me like crazy. Because I don't know, like we saw Fauci, what was it, a few days ago, sitting at one of his little talks, predicting, you know, predicting that there's going to be another pandemic and blah blah blah.
Somebody I saw in some comment section
Yeah.
where somebody was like, those stupid Twitter accounts. They always ask you dumb questions to get engagement.
Yeah.
Like, who do you trust more than Fauci?
Yeah.
And somebody wrote Dr. Kevorkian.
Yeah.
So I posted something, remember that old
I like
meme that
that.
I did with Norm Macdonald? Because Norm Macdonald would do funny Dr. Kevorkian bits all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He has like a whole series of things
Yes,
about
yes,
Dr.
yes, yes, yes.
Kevorkian.
Yeah.
I just want to read it to the folks at home.
Yeah.
Try to do it because I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
And then I want you to read page 336
Of
of the book, Call Upon My Name.
I don't think I
the
had
holy,
actually.
the holy names. Like you.
Oh, the
that's
ones that
book
I've
you
been.
had
Oh yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
yeah. Of course. Yeah. 336. Okay. I have to go get it from downstairs. Actually, no. Is it? Oh, it's here. Oh, hello. Thought it was downstairs.
Look at that.
Son of a something.
I'll read this quickly.
336. What would it okay.
Dude, I am so censored.
336. Is this a kosher pendulum, this thing?
No. Maybe 339?
Oh, Secrets of Our Ancient Past, Mashiach and Resurrection of the Dead already happened, this thing?
Yeah, did you hear what you just said? Did you hear the words that you just came out
Yeah,
of your mouth?
Mashiach and Resurrection of the Dead already happened? Question mark? I'm
Okay.
Ron Burgundy?
Okay, but I don't want you to read the whole thing.
No, no, no. I was just reading the
just
title just so I know where
okay,
where
so
we
listen
are.
to this. Here's if you can you guys see this? That's really blurry, right?
Oh, yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, I see. Will McDonald,
All
and
right,
he
that's
drew.
Norm
Yeah.
Macdonald.
Oh, dude, I have this photo. Hold on a
I know,
second.
but I want to read it.
I want to show the folks at home the
Those of you
photo
who
of this.
remember Norm
Yeah.
Macdonald as the host of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, he read the fake news, right?
Yeah.
So so I got this. This is inspired from his bits doing about Kevorkian because it was Kevorkian in those days, right? So I realized that Kevorkian would be today's Fauci.
Yeah.
Fauci took down a position because Kevorkian wasn't around.
Yeah. Correct.
So anyway,
yeah,
he's like, in medical news, vaccine mass murderer Anthony Fauci, normally seen daily.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good
Yeah?
information. That's good. Yeah,
All
you do
right,
it better
I'll
than
start
me.
over. I'll start
Yeah,
over.
sorry.
In medical news, vaccine mass murderer Anthony Fauci, normally seen daily on television, passionately touting the importance of using vaccines as a powerful tool in the fight against overpopulation, overaging, and global warming, hasn't made television appearances in recent days. Sources report that he's considering retirement after decades of pioneering the conscientious and compassionate culling method for environmental preservation, popularly known as the 3Cs method. His colleagues were surprised and many purportedly outraged, some even lashing out, accusing him of abandoning his post at this most crucial stage of global genocide. Fauci, unfazed by his critics, responded, I always said I would quit the day it stopped being fun.
Yeah.
You're welcome,
Yeah.
everyone. That was comedy genius.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh,
But when Norm Macdonald would do that bit, he'd always say when asked Dr. Kevorkian, when Dr. Kevorkian
Yeah.
asked,
Yeah.
how he goes, he's like, I always said I would retire when it stopped being fun. Anyway,
it's like you want to laugh, but you also want to cry.
okay,
and you want to punch somebody in the face.
folks, this is usually we have not lately because Greg's a bummer, but
The hell?
we used to have a section of our show that's called So UFOs, huh?
Oh,
So this would be, I would say, part of that section.
no.
And I think many of you will see why. By saying many, I mean all three of you listening. Okay.
In the future.
Including me and Greg. We're
Yeah.
part of three.
Yes.
Okay.
So all one of you, Alex, Ely,
Yeah.
and
Alex, you love me, man.
and Lowell,
I gotta
and
say, Alex, it's possible if it was not for you,
yeah,
Chris,
yeah.
I don't think we'd be doing this.
There's like Alex, Chris,
And
Sharon,
Sharon,
this guy Amalek Watcher, this other guy something, forget his name. Also like Torah
my
kind of
buddy
guy.
Max. He's really
Your friend Max, Eric was there, and Lowell and Roseanne on occasion.
maybe Roseanne. I think she watches from time to time.
Sometimes, yeah. There's like basically like 7 or 8. Oh, and then the Hadass used to watch when I was streaming on Facebook. Like 7 or 8 regulars. Oh, and then Paul once in a while as well on
The
Facebook.
beautiful Hadass. Now, I recently saw the
Oh,
movie.
Frank. Oh, Frank.
I recently saw the movie The Freshman.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember the movie The Freshman?
I gotta watch it. There's so many movies that I realized I didn't watch them.
What a movie.
You know what movie
What a movie.
I didn't watch? I actually didn't watch.
Wait, but hold on. The thing I was doing about Hadass was from that movie.
It's from there. Okay, fine.
Yeah. There's because Penelope Ann Miller
Mhm.
plays Tina. She's the daughter of Marlon Brando, who plays whatever. And there are these two weirdos. It's one German guy and this like Chinese actor.
Yeah.
And then they're like Matthew Broderick is like, yeah, I was sent here Tina told me to bring this, and they're like, ah, the wonderful Tina, and then the other guy, the beautiful Tina. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah.
just saw that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why I was inspired. Not that Hadass isn't beautiful. He is.
Moving
So
along. I'm kidding.
I like talking about the ladies. All right.
So I'm going to read this short little thing from this
Please,
book.
no, but the part that I'd like you to read would be just the translation from the source text.
Okay, fine.
Not the whole thing.
So, okay.
It's at the end.
Okay, so fine.
Can you tell the folks at home the name of the Kabbalistic book?
The name of the book is the name of the book he's citing?
Correct. He states it.
So this is a chapter called Secrets of Ancient Past. He's asking a question. Have Mashiach and the resurrection of the dead already happened? So the book is okay. So without further delay, let me introduce you to a piece of religious literature that will make statements like the likes of which are shocking to say the least. Let me introduce you to a small Kabbalistic text titled Umishelek al-Bin, like snow I will be whitened, authored by Rabbi Said ibn al-Bin, student of Rabbi Eli, published in Sefer HaGeulah v'Maftechot HaKabbalah. This is like a book of redemption. Maftechot is
keys.
Keys of Kabbalah. HaNeviut Chelek Bet, the Nevuit, yeah. Published by Machon Chachamei Yerushalayim HaMarab.
This is a legitimate
an institute.
Yeah. A legitimate source, rooted in the tradition. Now, this is Kabbalistic literature, so it's not mainstream even among regular Orthodox scholars. Not mainstream. No, it is mainstream.
Or as it's been told to me many times by some people, oh, mumbo jumbo.
Disregard everything Greg just said, folks.
No, I didn't say it.
What I'm saying is like this.
These so-called Orthodox Jews said it to me, where I wanted to
within the Orthodox
Jews, silly.
Within the Orthodox community, right, which carries the Torah tradition, you have the Kabbalists. Now, the Kabbalistic material is not encouraged to be taught to everyone. Only those who are suited to it, usually the top scholars. There's a good reason for that, because most people, the intellect required to delve into these topics, to understand the text, is very high. So you have to be of the highest possible intellect, and then you have to have reason to be looking into these things, right? So not everyone is suited for high-level spirituality. Most people have to be involved in the mundane aspects of life, and there's no real mundane aspects of life. You have, what I mean is, like, you have your daily affairs. Like, you got to know what God wants you to do in your home, how to observe the commandments, and there's so much that God wants the average Orthodox Jewish person to know and to do, that most people honestly don't have the time to go into the deeper aspects of spirituality. So it's only for really professional scholars, people who spend their time all day, or it's their job to be a scholar. And then even among those people, you have to be kind of the best of the best. So this information, Bar Tzadok, who's translating this book, he's not supposed to be doing this. He's probably not supposed to be doing this, right? He's like that guy who gets like a hold of government secrets, and he gets on national broadcast radio, whatever, or ham radio, and starts just reading classified files. Oh, you want to hear what happened to JFK? Yeah. Here's what really happened. But he actually has the real information. That's kind of what's up. That's rabbi.
Yeah.
Okay. So this piece of information is holy shit.
But it's
like
not shit. It's like
no,
holy.
it's not. It's not. That's the reaction. The reaction
Yeah.
is like I cannot believe that someone has actually
Yeah.
translated
Yeah.
this piece. This is really,
Yes.
really.
Crazy.
It's not crazy.
So
It's just
crazy.
to the average person, this would melt the brain.
Do you want to be?
of
Do you
most
want to
people,
be? Do you want to be a sock, Richard?
all right? Okay. But
Beige socks.
I find this information to be is going to be extremely important for people to know really, really soon.
Yeah. All right. Well, here
Without
goes
further
nothing.
delay,
Yes. We're out without further ado.
that sounds like the most anti-Semitic thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's
I don't know why he
Lowell.
does it.
It's
I don't know why he
hilarious
does it.
because it's him and it's hilarious. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Okay. In the brief translations I make here, you will find fantastic claims on behalf of the author. Yet these claims are not his own. Like a true Kabbalist, he received his lessons from his master, who in turn received from his, and on back through the generations. It has always been well known amongst the Kabbalistic sages that our present human civilization is not the first to have developed here on Earth. What is shocking is that what we believe to be unique to ourselves and our history is not unique at all. Here are the relevant selections from the text. Quote, know this, that the previous Shemitah, cosmic sabbatical, was of Abraham in the Sephirat Hesed. And in this Shemitah, there was a previous Adam Harishon, Adam, the first man, a Noah, a generation of the flood, and then a generation of separation, those who built the Tower of Babel, a previous Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Israel, and a previous Israel who were enslaved in Egypt, who went forth from there and received the Torah by the hands of Moses. They previously built the Holy Temple, which was destroyed, and a previous Israel was exiled, and a previous Mashiach came, and there was for them the resurrection of the dead. Afterwards, the world was destroyed. All this already happened in the previous Shemitah before our own. And then came the Shemitah of Isaac, the Sephirat of Gevurah, our present epoch. I've heard this idea, by the way. This is the secret of the verse. The world is built upon mercy, meaning that the previous world epoch was the Shemitah of. I think I heard, actually, you know what? By the way, Eric, I may have heard this from Rabbi G, by the way, of all people.
Wow.
Was the Shemitah of Abraham. Maybe, don't quote me on this. In that epoch, the name of Moses was Mahesh. This information I didn't hear. And now he came into this Shemitah of Isaac. Know that the Israel
Excuse
that.
me.
Yeah. Yes.
Rewind.
Yeah.
Rewind
Yeah.
the tape. Read that again a little bit slower.
In that epoch, the name of Moses was Mahesh. And now he came into the Shemitah of Isaac. And know that the Israel that was in the Shemitah became angels. And the angels became Sephirot. And Sephirot became Havayot, which is like permutations of Yod Hei Vav Hei. And with the Havayot was the new world created. This is the secret of, quote, and he gazed, and behold, three men were surrounding him. Abraham recognized that in the first Shemitah they were men, and who now had become angels.
So there was when Abraham was waiting by the tent after he circumcised himself, and he had the three guests, and he said, behold, there are three men.
Yeah.
But he knew they were angels, but they were in form of men. But it also means on a deeper look, on a very deep Kabbalistic secret, that these three angels were men in a previous cosmic cycle. Continue. Please.
Okay. Abraham recognized in the first meet that they were men and now had become angels. And know, my brother, that the nations, Goyim, like which just means nations in Hebrew, that were in the first Shemitah, they are now the Israel of this Shemitah. The entire history of Israel, including the coming of Mashiach and the resurrection of the dead, have already happened in full to those human beings who lived before us. As shocking as this revelation may be to some, it is a validation to others including myself. I wrote about the pre-Adamic civilizations in my book.
Okay, so this is already not
aliens, angels, and demons.
Okay, this is back to Bartzaldak. So the quotes have ended.
Yeah.
That excerpt from that ancient Kabbalistic book that was published over 500 years ago.
Can I just read one more thing that he mentions about this?
Please.
Uh, there are many secrets hidden from most of us. What is revealed here is only a drop in the bucket. As the past Shemitah went through the cycle through the prism of Sefer Chesed, we are now going through the same cycle through the prism of Sefer Gevura, which is why it's so difficult. Once we finish our cycle, human civilization will again be rebooted from scratch. Whether this will occur through natural disasters or by overt human hands, or we will have to wait and see. Listen to this, and this is what connects. I was just actually this is nuts. In the previous Shemitah, their civilization ended with an intergalactic nuclear holocaust. Mars was not always the way it is now. It was once richly inhabited, and there was once a whole planet once between Mars and Jupiter. We don't know how it was destroyed, but we see the evidence of it. The evidence of a prehistoric nuclear war here on Earth is numerous. But this war was not fought by aliens, it was fought by us, our ancestors. Dude, I think Elon knows about something about this. That's why he's obsessed with freaking Mars. I think he knows something about something. Not this, but something about something. 1% of it, or
Something about something.
he's gotten wind of some of this information, and he's just like, holy crap, I've got to go to Mars. We've got to go back to our thing, our Hesed thing,
Yeah.
our pre civilization. That's why he's naming his kids freaking square root of pi equals cosine, tangent equals whatever. You know that, right? One of his kids is named like whatever. Aeon Flux.
Pi is encoded directly
Yeah.
on many levels in the first verse of the Torah.
Yeah.
It's also the gematria of the name of the angel Metatron and of the name of God Shaddai.
Yeah.
All they're all pi.
Yeah. No, his kid's name is here. You know what his kid's name is? Here's his kid's name.
I'd like to discuss what we just read before we go on to
We can.
Elon Musk's kids. God bless him.
XAE, but it's not AE, it's like A-12. That's his kid's name. Anyway.
He's like, I gave him goofy names, but they're so rich that the girls won't mind anyway.
Exactly.
All right. So I hope that's what he thought.
Yeah.
So why was this important? How was this helpful? I can hear rabbis who, they're clenching. They're like, why did you, what purpose would you need to reveal that information to people? Well, I think it's important. So there's a couple of remarkable things that I think are of interest if a wide audience listened to us, it would be of interest to them because a couple of amazing things were said. There seems to be a system put in place of graduated consciousness, ascending consciousness. We've talked about this topic before, where what's going on in this world is that sentient consciousness is growing. It comes here to develop and to grow, where you have human beings, and then you have Gentiles and you have Israelites. The Israelites become when the cycle is finished, they become angels. Then the Gentiles become the Israelites. Then they become angels, and so the angels that we have right now that we learned about. And by the way, there are several opinions as to which cycle we are currently located in. The book that we were just reading is of the opinion that we're in the second cycle, but I've heard other opinions. I've heard there's at least one that says we're in the fourth, and I've heard a few, which I think, I don't know, but I'm speculating that the majority that we're actually in the seventh cycle.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I can rectify the discrepancy, because the first cycle he mentioned was that of Abraham, and the second cycle was that of Yitzhak.
Yeah.
So Avraham represents the sphere of Chesed. And Gevura represent, Yitzhak represents the sphere of Gevura. Now, aside from being two of the Sphirot, they also represent the general system of the Sphirot. So you have the Chasadim and the Gvurot. So basically anything on the right side of the Sephirotic anatomy chart is of the nature of Chesed, loving kindness. Anything on the left side is of the nature of severity and restriction and judgment. So even the Sphirot beneath Chesed and Gvura, right, which would be Netzach and Hod. Okay, they're of that nature. They're still of the nature of Chesed. Netzach is still of the nature of Chesed, and Hod is still of the nature of Gvura. It's still within that line, that column. Okay, so to say that we're in the Gevura stage, right? Could also mean that we're in the left side of Yesod, of the general Yesod. And the next step would be Malchut, which is the final product, the kingdom of God. The one that reflects all the work that has come before it. The final product, okay, represented by the Shekhinah. Okay, so some of you might be lost listening to this. This is a little bit difficult. We don't have the time to get into all the details. You need a little bit of background. So, but basically, it's possible that when it's said that we're in the Gevura sabbatical, it might very well mean that we're in the Gevura stage of the final process. I'm hoping.
I think that's what's possible because
of the amount of angelic races that have come before us. You can kind of there are tiers of angels, and if you're going to say that the angels who are angels to us were men in the previous cycle, then you can kind of get a sense of how many cycles there were before.
Yeah.
I don't know. That part is just my speculation. But even if we are actually only in the second sabbatical cycle, okay?
Yeah.
It'll certainly be a reprieve for us. And it may not be as difficult for the next cycle as it was for us in this one, because this is Gevura. This is the most severe of all the Sefirot.
Yeah.
And so it would be, on that level, it really truly would be a completely different reality. And every cycle after this one would look like a cakewalk. Cakewalk.
Yeah.
Is it a kegwalk or a cakewalk?
Cakewalk, like cake.
Yeah.
It's a cake.
Right. Compared to this, every other sabbatical cycle would be a cakewalk.
Yeah.
It must be. So in that sense, there is hopefully never return to such a difficult experience. It wouldn't be necessary. I don't even know why it was necessary in the first place, but whatever, that's just me. So what's the point? So, well, first of all, it tells us that there is a system that God has, and there is a system of growth for all people. No one gets left behind. If you didn't make it in this cycle, you're gonna catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody makes it eventually. Okay, so and also, if we do start to have these phenomenon that if the phenomenon that we've been discussing in these discussions begins to move, we saw it move from the movie screens to the news cycles, right? It was it was it was Star Trek and the X-Files.
Yeah.
And then we saw it move into the description of what our servicemen, American servicemen, have been claiming to see every
Yeah.
single day, all the time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's constantly in the news. And then we witnessed it move from the news to congressional hearings. So there's and then if it moves from congressional hearings to the president speaking about it, and then if it moves from the president speaking about it to the citizens beginning to interact with it, people are going to have some questions.
Yeah.
And they're going to need guidance.
Yeah.
So and we have the Torah provides the information. We have it in our tradition to understand what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be important. How many people are preparing for this dilemma?
I don't know.
Basically Bart Sadok, and then you, well, me and you kind of lately reluctantly, not so
And this rabbi, a couple of rabbis in Israel.
Really, I don't even know.
What for preparing for
to explain phenomena.
no, the couple of rabbis in Israel, yeah. Couple in Israel.
That's good to know. I didn't know that at all.
No, meaning they're not open about it, but I'm sure they consider it. Yeah, but as far as
I'm hoping that people
but as far as like ones we know about openly who are like involved, yeah, Bart Sadok, me, you, and
that's it.
there might be like a weird guy in YU who read Rabbi Soloveitchik's stuff about it, but I don't even think he even considers it.
Ari Kaplan, before Bart Sadok, Ari Kaplan was the most prolific writer on the topic.
So it's possible that a couple of people who follow Ari Kaplan, but I don't know how active they are with like.
Mattis Friedman kind of slightly, barely kind of brushed against the topic by accident times. Okay. I think maybe,
Rabbi Kissen laughed at us.
Literally. And yet I've heard Rabbi Kissen talk about the tradition that when Mashiach comes, the armies of angels that will be exposed will be so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But he's not putting it all together.
Yeah.
Not outwardly.
But again, like to give him to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, or let him off the hook, first of all, he doesn't even watch that much TV, but whatever he saw of TV and their movies in his life, it was part of that whole psyop to make people think that aliens are like a cartoon.
Yeah.
So, like Marvin the Martian from whatever.
So you know what? Maybe Rabbi Kessin will need us.
Yeah. Yes, he will.
All right. It's 12.
Yes, sir.
It's the pumpkin. What's the thing with the Cinderella and the pumpkin?
She has turned, or the pumpkin.
My carriage turns into a pumpkin.
Yeah. And the pumpkin has turned into a pumpkin pie.
Cinderella. Remember Shavatinsky?
Dude, I love that song. On occasion I sing that song when I'm just like doing stuff.
Damn, was that a catchy song? Those are the two most Russian songs to me ever. That and Pugacheva.
The best song.
Was it Million?
Dude, listen.
That was a really beautiful song, by the way. It's ridiculous.
Listen,
hard for me to admit that.
I made a mix of Russian restaurant songs, but some of them are Russian and others are not. Some of them are Italian because Russians love Italian music.
Yeah.
Кто-то Кутуньо. Кто-то же Кутуньо. Yeah. Felicita. 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 What?
Every mom had that on cassette.
Oh yeah. All right.
Then there's some French guy murmuring in the background, like and the Italian chick is
There's also Joe Dassin.
Tous les moments.
Yeah. See, back when like there was actual romance. Like today, if I played Joe Dassin to a girl, she'd be like, "What is wrong with you?" She'll be like, "You know how I know you're gay? You're playing Joe Dassin in your car."
There's
Right.
physically nothing wrong with the girls today. They're probably just as beautiful.
Physically, no, 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 no,
But
Physically,
no.
there's there's a,
it's their mind is broken.
their mind that's absent.
The mind is full of socks, Richard.
I think I honestly
Full of socks.
like. I'm not saying I'm Mr. Universe over here, but I'm just saying if I was the last
Yeah,
guy on
yeah.
Earth and it was just a bunch of attractive women who are
Ah,
Taylor Swift,
yeah.
I fear that the human race would be doomed.
Yes. I mean, listen, it wouldn't be doomed. Obviously, we would.
Doomed. Doomed.
Doomed.
Doomed.
Socks. I think Eric does a better, what's it called? And Eric just has the natural,
Unfortunately, it's always imitation.
yeah,
Imitation
yeah.
is the greatest form of
Yeah,
flattery.
so, I don't know. You can't play Joe Dassin anymore. You can't play like
Can you play Joe the Sound, please? Can we show the people the beauty of what is the Indian summer?
that's the name of the song?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Hold
It was
on.
actually he's not even French. He's
It's
from he's American and he's thinking about
his
it
mom
upstate New York.
his no his mom is French. He like lived
Yeah, but he's American. American kid.
yeah. This is the song? Yeah, I
Indian
think this is
summer.
it. It's not Indian Summer, it's like in French something French
Yeah.
title.
How do you say
SC
let?
this thing?
No,
No?
no. That's also a good song.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Oh,
Indian summer.
let Indienne.
Yes, yes. Leta,
Yeah.
like summer, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That doesn't smell good.
What does?
Indian summer.
Savage.
Oh, here,
Savage.
this is the video.
Curry, like,
Yeah.
I like her.
Dude, look how guys there was like no F's given. Here. This is 1975. My parents were like 21 years old and in college this time.
Tu sais, je n'ai jamais été aussi heureux que ce matin-là.
This is what a dude did to get women.
No, it's not. He's just a
No,
good.
and he did. No, and he did. I'm
They
saying.
forced these guys to make these videos.
No, what I mean is these videos would get these guys women even unintentionally. It was a byproduct.
Nous marchions sur une plage, un peu comme celle-ci. C'était l'automne.
There you go.
L'automne où
Forgot
il
about the
faisait
cool
beau.
bass line too.
Yeah,
There you go.
Saison qui n'existe que dans le nord de l'Amérique. Là-bas, on l'appelle l'été indien, mais c'était tout simplement le nôtre. Avec ta
Like a
robe
freaking
longue,
movie,
tu
dude.
ressemblais à une aquarelle de Marie Laurencin. Et je me souviens très bien de ce que je t'ai dit ce matin-là.
If anybody's asking why I'm single, it's because this doesn't exist anymore.
Il y a un an, il y a un
Shout
siècle,
out, Greg.
il y a une éternité. On ira où tu voudras, quand tu voudras. Et l'on s'aimera encore lorsque l'amour sera mort. Toute la vie sera pareille à ce matin. Aux couleurs de l'été indien. Aujourd'hui, je suis très loin de ce matin d'automne.
Yeah.
What is he saying?
when they used to play it instead of
Oh yeah, the band used to play
recording.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
have bands.
Dude, can I tell you something? In the
I really
in the restaurant,
I wanted to finish listening. It didn't even hit the peak of the song.
listen to me. In the restaurant National, on the first floor, they had a band in the 90s. The band played Hotel California better than the Eagles. And when I say they played Hotel California better than the Eagles, I'm saying the vocalist was better. The guitarist who played the solo that they have on that song was better. Everything was better. Like these guys, I don't know what planet they were from. There was some band they had over there. They're playing Beatles. They're
I
playing
think the Earth was
Eagles.
vibrating at a different frequency.
Yeah, no, it was what do you call it, Frank? No,
Human resonance?
no. You call not Narnia. What do you have a name?
Oh, no. I don't have a name. When you go on X, you have all these people who think that every glorious building
Yeah,
in Europe and in America was built by Tartaria,
Tartaria. Yeah,
previous
it
civilization.
was Tartaria.
So they think that Joe Dassin is from Tartaria.
Everything was from in Tartaria. We were lived in
Michael
Tartaria.
Jackson, right? Thriller could have
Yeah.
only been made in Tartaria.
Yeah, it's just
Kind of feels that way. Like Reagan was the last leader of Tartaria.
yeah. And then after that it came. Yeah, you showed me that chart today. You know, the whole when transgenderism skyrocketed to the moon. Like
Yeah,
basically
81,
not
81 was the last normal year.
well, really
on Earth.
1990 is when the trend just started going like parabolic.
That's when they started having kids.
Yeah.
Other people didn't. So,
Yeah.
Just bastard.
It's crazy. It's so crazy.
brainwashing.
Wash the brains, Richard.
Filth.
All right.
All right, y'all.
Oh, can I
Well,
play one more? This is I just want you to see the guy's face and understand. Now here's a guy who did what he did
yeah, here's
for
the guy.
now here's a guy to literally get women.
Are you looking up Chris Collins' work?
Close. Adriano Celentano.
The next
Almost. There's a song. Look, okay, there's a song called Azzurro. And like you see the guy's face, and they're like, I don't know, it's like a close-up of his face. I guess like a live, you know.
Azzurro, il pomeriggio è troppo azzurro e lungo per me. Mi accorgo di non avere più risorse senza di te. E allora io quasi quasi prendo il treno e vengo da te. Il treno dei desideri, dei miei pensieri all'incontrario va.
I'm not going to play this whole thing. I just want to say, either the director of whatever this was told him, "Hey, Adriano, pretend that at the other end of the camera there's a woman who you want to like, you know, and give that look." Or there actually was a woman, and he was just like, "I'm targeting you." And there's just like 4 minutes of him looking at the camera like that and singing.
I want to tell you something. I'm not saying that the guys from the previous generation were angels. By no means were they angels.
Yeah,
But compared to us, they were angels.
probably.
Because
Yeah.
because it wasn't just about boinking.
No, I know that. It was
They
romance.
could appreciate really just even an embrace.
For sure.
Just the way a woman felt.
For sure.
No, they really appreciated some romance. They really did.
Correct. But knowing who
That's
this
what
guy
those songs
was,
were expressing. They weren't expressing, boinking is what current music expresses. You know what I mean? Like,
they were also expressing that, but it was
that's your word,
it
by
was
the way.
it was packaged in it was packaged in something different than what it's packaged in today. That's what I think. But
Okay.
in any event,
But even songs about boinking,
yeah,
they were kind of like corny
course.
and they were dirty
Yeah.
songs in the 70s. skyrockets in flight
Yeah.
after the light.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
It's like ridiculous. It's like it makes me think of just like literally, what's his name? Will Ferrell in Burgundy. That whole motif.
Yeah, it's like, come on, guys.
Sex
This
Sex
was the
Panther.
top.
is
What is
that
it?
was that was the moral degradation of
Oh
music.
yeah.
It's a shitty song too.
It is. It is pretty bad.
The boy is a catch.
Was
It's
it? Oh,
retarded.
catchy.
I agree. I agree.
Dun, 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 dun,
Retarded
dun.
music.
Born to be alive, born to be, it's like even that song is
Yeah.
not as filthy.
Tartaria. That's all I have to say.
We talked about Val Kilmer. Did we talk about Val Kilmer?
He passed.
Oh no, he passed, but
passed away.
but
We
did we?
didn't. We didn't.
We didn't,
I mean,
no.
oh, we talked about privately, but yeah.
You missed out on the
Dude, Val Kilmer. I was watching a thing
Yeah, he talked
Oh, you
about
did? Oh, I was totally
about Val Kilmer, how he immersed himself into the role of what's his name, Jim Morrison, so much that his wife wanted. I mean, eventually they did get divorced, not because of that, but at the time his wife was just like, I can't take this. He's like living as Jim Morrison in the house, for like a year and a half. This is insane. This is like
crazy.
it's crazy. He became Jim Morrison.
I think he could have played a lot more comic roles. It's kind
Yeah.
of weird the way
He wanted to. He said he wanted to.
he was so good in Real Genius. He was really
Yeah.
funny in that.
Yeah. You know my
Remember that
favorite
episode?
my favorite scene in Real Genius when he's like in the house and here. And he goes, yeah, this is when he meets the daughter of the
Oh, that's dirty. I don't
I
want
know,
to
but
see
it's funny.
it's not
I think
fun. I
it's
have a better one. I have a better one.
H
he's
for
like-
toy.
He's like, you know,
H for toy. Found
the
H for toy.
kid's like, I had a dream. He goes, was it the one where you're standing naked on top of a Aztec pyramid
Yeah.
while millions of nude women are
Yeah.
chanting at you and throwing little pickles at you? And
Yeah.
the kid's like, no. He goes, why am I the only one who has that dream?
Yeah.
That's
If anything, that's dirty.
silly.
You know, something strange happened to me this morning.
Was it a dream where you see yourself standing in sort of sun god robes on a pyramid
Sun god
with
robes.
1,000 naked women screaming and throwing little pickles at you?
No.
Why am I the only person that has that dream?
that and the whole Socrates thing were the two funniest scenes in the movie.
What was the second thing?
When he was like, he's like,
Let's see.
in preparation for for Harry, because he was thrown out of school.
I drank water, whatever. Immortal Wars of
Drank
Socrates.
what? Right, exactly, yeah. Yeah, he had.
I
he
don't
had
remember this.
chops.
I don't remember this scene.
What you doing?
Self-realization. I was thinking of the immortal words of Socrates, who said, I drank what?
Is there something?
I drank one.
For those of you curious, Socrates drank hemlock.
Mm,
And with that,
yes.
got to go pee.
Oh, how profound. All right.
You know what? For Val Kilmer, can you play us off with the song from Real Genius, the signature song of what's it called? It's dun, 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 dun. I'm trying to remember like the hook. Dun, 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 dun.
Music.
Yeah, like the Real Genius soundtrack.
Oh,
There's
there's,
two particular
there's
tracks.
number one. No.
Number one is one of them, and the other one is Falling. Right, Falling.
The walls came down. That one you're talking about? The call.
play this?
The walls came down.
Yeah, I think so. That's to me the signature track. You'll see why. Can you turn it for a second?
This one?
We'll see.
No.
One of the most 80s sounding songs you'll ever hear.
Yeah. This one?
I can't hear anything, Greg.
Hold on.
I'm guessing.
Perhaps. When the walls came down,
Oh no.
they'd all been one.
I'm falling. I'm falling. The first one, bro. Greg, I'm falling.
I'm falling. But
This one, yeah.
this one, Calm Set Angels.
We play this off. We'll play body, everyone.
Yes.
Let it play.
Yeah. Fade out. Wait a sec. Unmute.
That was a good fade out.
Yeah, that's what I do for my mixes.
Nice. All right,
All
man.
right. All right, folks.
Hope you all enjoyed this one.
Yes. It was
All
good.
right.
It was good.
We were dropping some mushroom clouds on this one.
Oh man. Yeah.
All right.
It's necessary. All right.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night,
Peace out.
everyone.